Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Radicat, and you can find me at Radicat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
With Columbia down the way.
And the sound effects you have just heard come from none other than our man in Brooklyn, one agent underscore 70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
You can find this here podcast on the Cold Slither Podcast Network. That's cspn.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us on your podcast personal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple, iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Cold Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. And we are here tonight to bring you comics, as we tend to do each week. I will say shout out to all my gamers watching the Game Awards as we speak, which is probably just about to go off, but you know, because I have a feeling there will be some news in the next time we record from that for some comic book related video game news, I suspect. But we will see about that. But for now, we are going to get into just a little brief couple of minutes impressions, a recap of Hawkeye episode 4, which just released the day before today's recording. So there won't be any spoilers or any big spoilers if there are any. So, but just in case,
we're going to try to keep it spoiler light. And, you know, I was about to say, I think it's a little hard to promise no spoilers at this point, but we're going to try to keep it spoiler light. So in that regard, I am going to ring the spoiler bell. So if you want to avoid everything that we talk about and any minor mention that we might make of what could be spoiler material for episode 4 of Hawkeye, make sure to tune away or fast forward once the spoiler bell hits in 3, 2, 1. The spoilers are inbound.
Yeah, I should really put a timestamp on these like I did at one time. But nevertheless, so yeah, Hawkeye episode 4, excuse me, I was about to say 3, which is called Partners, Am I Right? I believe is the name of it.
Yes.
So there's one big thing that happens in this episode, and it's someone not necessarily gets introduced, but somebody shows up that we were expecting from another movie to show up, finally did. And that's kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but before but I wanted to go ahead and get that out of the way, because you probably, if you've been keeping up with your Marvel movies, specifically one of the last 3 that has come out, you probably know who that is.
Mephisto.
Yeah, there you go. So people are still making that theory too. I'm sitting here like, okay, y'all need to give that up. Like even with Hawkeye, I've seen like a Easter egg video talking about, like, you know, this Mephisto, you know, as a joke.
Exactly. So it's but you know, I mean, the episode does pick up where we left off at the end of episode 3. We're not spoiling anything, but just to give everyone a general idea of what's going on. And we get a little bit of a sit down between some of the main protagonists in the series and possibly some of the antagonists who, you know, we're not sure yet what role Kate's mother and possible future stepfather may have in the story. So it's kind of an interesting way to start the episode with a little bit of a sit down conversation. But coming off of that, we have a bit of sleight of hand on Hawkeye's part, and he's able to retrieve something. And ultimately, the two get to regroup at Kate's aunt's apartment. And ultimately, they're able to figure out, you know, kind of start to lay down some plans on how to proceed. And, you know, things obviously never go to plan in the MCU, and that's where we get some of the character interactions that Roddy Cat was just referring to.
Mm-hmm. I was actually kind of bummed about that beginning part because I was hoping for a specific recognition, unless they're still playing that, try to play that close to the vest, but I don't think they are.
Recognition.
Yes, between two characters who in the comic books have a history.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and it makes sense that they wouldn't have that kind of recognition because of the MCU and Ultimate universes being closely aligned in Hawkeye's origin.
Correct. But but they could kind of. I mean, they still very well could be like, "Oh wait, I knew you under another name," and then do something like that. Although it still wouldn't work out because the character knew each other under the names that's being used now. So
right.
Whether they toss that in from the 616 or not. So at any rate, yeah. So we get to that, and also actually just like going from that and from the conversation with Eleanor and Clint. Right there, like that little conversation right there is like yeah, she's been kind of showing little hints of, Eleanor's been kind of showing little hints of stuff in from the get-go, and you could kind of play off part of that conversation as in, well, like, some of the stuff she said was probably news that got out all around the world,
right?
But at the same time, it felt like she knew. It almost felt like she knew a little bit more about the situation than not necessarily the particulars, but like she had some way to kind of figure, like she kind of knew a little bit more than she's letting on.
Right, and ultimately, we don't know much about Vera Farmiga's character. Still, 4 episodes in.
Correct.
So we don't know if this character is going to be around for the long haul in the MCU. We don't know that yet because there's definitely more to this character than we've been than what we've been given so far.
Right. Although one doesn't even know. Although I mean, obviously her comic. I'm sure there's probably going to be a little bit more of her comic comic things that'll be in here at some point, or we may end up finding out what's the real deal by the time this ends, obviously. So but going from that, like Agent 7 said, we get our plan gets in action. They start kind of doing some sleuthing in their own ways. Hawkeye so I'm just going to, this is a slight spoiler, he calls his wife, and I'm only saying this not because he's calling her, because it's that weekly checkup of the him trying to get home for Christmas, but apparently she
I was about to say, I don't know about weekly, more like daily.
Well, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
weekly as in the show, but you're right, daily as because of the progression, in the in-world progression. You're right about that.
Right.
But that being said, but he doesn't necessarily call for that reason. He calls because he was trying to get some information, and obviously we know at this point that she knows about his life as an Avenger and probably i.e. Shield. And I suspect, given because of what he asked her to do, she also is probably a former Shield agent.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know the extent of her involvement. We just don't know. This might be one of the big reveals,
right,
during this series. So we'll see.
Actually, it's kind of funny because I came across a theory, and I might have it in the show notes of that. She might be the MCU's Mockingbird.
Right. I'll be disappointed by that because we already have an MCU Mockingbird.
Kinda. Like, we know Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not necessarily, canon as of that last couple of seasons, but yeah, I'm agreeing with you on that. Like, but we know that Mockingbird has had dealings with Barton. So I would also be kind of disappointed if that is the case. But at this point, like, I feel like we can infer that she definitely knows more about the life than we've gotten to see from her.
Right. I mean, we knew that she was familiar with it because she was friendly with Natasha back in Age of Ultron.
Right.
and and familiar with Fury enough that he could be around their house.
Right, which
So
pretty much puts screeners that she's probably former Shield.
right, right. At the very least, I think that's probably the case.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not she's going to be the equivalent of Bobby Morse is another story, and we'll see how that plays out. But getting back to the episode, and and what we mentioned earlier, when I was going through that really quick, believe it or not, this episode was the shortest one to date of Hawkeye so far. But there's a lot of stuff happening. Yeah. There just is. There are plenty of developments. A character gets introduced into the series, and we're left to wonder how Alaqua Cox's Maya Lopez fits into some of this stuff now, because of some of the actions that she takes during the, I guess, climactic battle scene at the end of this episode. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're kind of left wondering, and one of the revelations that comes up as a result of Hawkeye, the two Hawkeyes now getting, locating this one artifact that is kind of, we're kind of led to believe that it's more related to Hawkeye and possibly Laura Barton than anything else.
Right. So because
based off,
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say based off of the artifact, the phone calls between Laura and Clint, as well as some of the notes that they find in the location where they locate the watch,
right?
The artifact,
right? Which is kind of funny because the artifact was what they called, I believe it was one of those shorts, one of the earlier Marvel shorts. That's what they called whatever Coulson went after. They just called it the artifact, and I think that ended up being the Cosmic Cube, or I thought it was having one or two, but I can't remember what it was. So that's kind of funny you say that. But this particular artifact was what we thought to be, well, what people thought to be believed coming from a fellow Avenger. Still could be the case, but I doubt it, especially given what they said in this episode about that particular piece. So that part is just made things curious about that part, because as we said, there's a couple of things going on here. And yes, so there is a part that started us off like they started off hunting one piece of gear that was close to Hawkeye, and it seemed like as of this episode, all of that's been retrieved, and the rest of it is kind of going into this other piece that has come up of note. That being said, though, to keep it moving, so okay, I'm not sure what that one's about, but
no, you got to read the bit that one of our co-hosts left us.
Wow, that's a
another.
Yeah, that's a book. Okay.
But I read through it quickly, and I was like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So you'll understand. So Rodicat will understand exactly what I mean when we kind of get to that portion of the show.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But to get back on this quickly, so we can kind of get off of it to get to that point. So yeah, there's a little sleuth thing. Clint actually kind of says like, yeah, tells Kate that her instincts might be right about their boy, about Jack. They talk. She tries to cheer him up with some Christmas cheer.
Oh yeah, I was about to say I skipped past all that stuff in the apartment.
Yeah, I'm bringing it up because it was a nice touching moment, and also like I told Agent 70 before the show, was like Dailies, the makers of alcoholic frozen concoctions, got their product placement in a couple of times during the course of the series. It's kind of funny to see. But yeah, so they had a little thing at the apartment. I believe after this is when he sent Kate to the LARPers, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. And the LARPers promised to be a recurring set of characters in this show. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's a good comedic relief, but at the same time, it may ultimately grate on my my sensibilities. We'll see.
I doubt. Yeah, nah, I doubt they're gonna. If we see them, it'll probably be like one more time during the course of the next couple of episodes. But I doubt if it's gonna be anything like very much reoccurring. You know.
Let's hope.
Yeah, because that's like that's. I feel like there's not much use outside of what they've been going. You know, like even this part probably didn't necessarily need to happen, but but it happened. So we might see him this at the very least one more time, which I don't know. I didn't have a problem with that part because it was like it is what it is, and we got at the very least a person that showed up in the comic series. Hopefully, what happens to him in the course of the series doesn't happen here.
Oh, Grills,
yeah, Grills. Kind of shows up again, and there's some talk of costumes, which I don't know if that's actually going to happen at the end of this either, but at the very least for one of them, maybe possibly. Oh, hold on. I knew there was another reason why I was bringing up the apartment scene, because they brought up a very specific thing from the Hawkeye series in reverse, because they were talking about trick arrows, and one particular trick arrow in particular was brought up. I'm just like, how you gonna do the boomerang arrow like that? So, and obviously this Hawkeye, Clint Barton, is kind of not the same as the Hawkeye in the comic series. We
in the 616, right?
Yes, in 616. So there is that, because he was the one who was championing for this arrow, and the suit that he wore in the 666 classically, to where Kate is the one kind of saying, hey, you should get the suit, you should get this arrow, or why not have this arrow? And then he's the one kind of poo-pooing this stuff in the MCU. So I'm like, I appreciated the fact that the conversation came up, but
yeah, it's definitely weird, especially for people who kind of have pushed the ultimate versions of many of these characters to the wayside, because that's what Marvel has done, really.
Yeah.
So, other than Miles. So, what it comes down to is, realizing that in the MCU, at least for Hawkeye, they really have taken a lot of the ultimate version and basically made him, an bow and arrow wielding assassin.
Right.
And that's really what it came down to. And they've kind of stepped fully into that role, into that aspect of the character in several parts of this show, as they try to flesh out his character and backstory, where they get to a point where in this episode he's talking about, yeah, I'm a weapon. They point me in a direction and they let me go.
Right.
So, he doesn't necessarily see himself as a hero even after all of his avenging. So that's possibly one of the mini story arcs that might get resolved during these last 2 episodes for Hawkeye and his character.
Yeah, we'll see. We shall see. And getting to the end of this one, like Kate goes to the LARPer, Clint talks to Kazi, which I'm still not sure whether we're going to get the clown in this one, because Kazi is the clown in the comic books, but we don't know whether that's going to be the case here. Doesn't seem like enough time to justify bringing that up, and especially what happens to him, what happens to Clint, and between Clinton and Kazi in the comic books. But regardless, that happens. There's a break-in to who we find to be a person in the department for this other item that we talked about earlier, and then the big fight that Agent 70 brought up a little while ago, leading to the revelation and the introduction to another person into this series that we have seen in the movie, or in a movie particularly, and I suspect we will see again in the next couple of particularly next episode, but definitely in the next couple of episodes, because we only got a couple left anyway. And at the end of this, it's kind of sad, because Clint's kind of gotten to be because of this fight, Clint's like, nope, we can't do this, you got to go home, and that ends this particular episode.
If anything, he's really being the responsible adult.
Right.
He really is. If there's anything that you can credit Clint Barton with at the end of this episode, is that he's being the responsible adult. Right. He's doing his best to keep Kate Bishop safe, knowing that while maybe she's not a minor, she's still a college student. So she's still very young.
Right. And you could almost see that being the case in the beginning of this episode, to which, when, like I said, going back to the conversation between him and her mom.
Right.
So you could almost see that one coming, and it makes
Right.
sense.
They definitely use that as one motivating factor, as well as a callback to something from Endgame as
Yes.
another motivating factor in Clinton Barton's actions at the end of this episode. So, like I said, we definitely mildly spoiled things that were going on, but we definitely recommend. I don't want to put words into Radicat's mouth. Recommend this Hawkeye series so far. It's been pretty fun.
No, yeah, I'm still on that. Yes, definitely. Like, obviously, it will play a little bit differently if you watch them all, like, all in a binge, because I'm pretty sure at the end of this is probably going to be like, what, a good 3-4 hours, probably a good 4 hours at offset of this, so you can kind of hit that real easily.
Right.
And it will probably play a little bit better than it might to some people, but I'm still with it. So,
Listen, I definitely enjoy this once a week type thing.
Oh, yeah,
just
totally.
because I'm probably a little too old school. So
that's funny, because I was having the same conversation with somebody yesterday about that, because it was like, yeah, like you and I come from a time where we didn't have binge watching. We didn't have, we had to wait for the next season for, we had to wait week to week to watch a show, plus a whole other, offset of time before the season comes back. So we didn't have this binge watching situation like people do now. And yeah, there are some benefits to it personally, So I still kind of dig it. Give you something to look forward to. But that being said, like I said, yeah, it's great. Been great so far. Hopefully it'll be able to stick to the landing, and we'll get some questions answered. That being said, though, I think we can move on.
Yep.
To the comic books of the week. And I believe we said, as I pull up the covers, we said we're going to start off with Inferno number 3.
Yes, Inferno number 3. A pretty important issue in the Hawks Pox, Reign of X, all this Jonathan Hickman X mumbo jumbo, as our co-host Tim Dog 98 is wont to call Jonathan Hickman's stuff. Inferno number 3 is written by Jonathan Hickman with pencils by the trio of R.B. Silva, Stefano Caselli, and Valerio Schiti. Inks are by Adriano Di Benedetto. Colors are by David Curiel. And letters are by VC's Joe Sabino. And when I said that this is, probably one of the biggest and most important issues in this Hickman Mumbo Jumbo X era, I am not, that's not hyperbole. That is not overstating things at all. I think this is one of the biggest issues to date for Hickman's Mumbo Jumbo X-Men era, because we get a flashback all the way to the founding of Krakoa, like the nascent days of Krakoa, where it's literally a twinkle in Charles Xavier's eye.
Mm-hmm.
We have information that proves to be important later. We even get some insight into why Krakoa stops being a mutant-eating island.
Well, I forgot we got that part. We had gotten like early on, though, because I remember them explaining that one kind of a way. But yeah, we do get a little bit more.
But not this way.
Yeah,
not as fully this way. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
We get a much more full explanation, a much more fleshed out explanation of Krakoa's, let's say, inaction or lack of desire.
Some of its infrastructure needs, some would say, I guess. So yeah.
Right. And it starts with that, and we just we pick up with some of the events from last issue. Now I'll hand it off to Roddy Cat with a meeting of the minds between and I'm going to ring the spoiler bell here, because there is so much here that is important that will be that will fill in lots of little holes, not plot holes, but just holes in what maybe we've understood to happen so far and why things have happened so far. So if you want to catch up, you may want to fast forward past this, or just go la 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 while we're talking about Inferno number 3. So here comes a spoiler bell in 3, 2, 1. Spoilers for Inferno 3 inbound. Go ahead.
Indeed. So what I find interesting about this is there was a real aha moment that I'm mad at myself that it took this long to catch. Because and as Age of 70 said, and as we've been talking about, like this kind of goes back to the beginnings of not even just with that. Well, actually, that kind of goes back before that, but or to the beginning of that, to the beginning of Hoxpox, and kind of fills in some stuff, and it even brings some stuff forward. So as Age of 70 said, we do get a meeting of the minds. Mystique, Destiny, and Emma Frost meet, because this is after last issue where Emma finally finds out the whole situation from Charles and Magneto, and wasn't sure, and they weren't sure how to take that, and like whether she's going to be an enemy or whatever. Which come to find out, yeah, they may not have probably should have told her, but because she sets up a meeting with Mystique and Destiny, but before that meeting takes place, Destiny kind of tells the Stepford Cuckoos a little bit about their fate, which I'm assuming, I'm only bringing that up because I feel like that's probably going to come up. I don't know if that's going to be in the course of Inferno, I doubt, or in the X books properly, because I guess, this is, but basically there's some stuff to come, and we already know that there's some stuff we'll talk about later in the news that's going to be upcoming in the X books. But yeah, Emma, Mystique, and Destiny meet. Emma pretty much lays out what she knows about it to them, and I guess and they kind of go from there, because it's not like Mystique and Destiny did not have their own thoughts about what's going on, but they didn't have the full picture until now. Where they go from here, we don't know, but we do know that like that whole thing just kind of, as the title says, kind of sets things ablaze in a big way. And then we cut to the fact that well, I guess we do start to get a certain plan in order in a way, because we cut to Charles and Eric talking about the future, but then get interrupted because prior to that, Myra McTaggart gets snatched up off the street, we come to find out who was the one who was the ones behind doing that. For what reason we don't. Well, for what reason we kind of have an idea, but what we don't know is who they were working with or for, if anything. Because obviously, when you have a person who can see the future, you can lay out some stuff, obviously. But Charles and Eric kind of go and do that, and they get met with some, let's say, some pretty good resistance on that point. But in the meantime of that, we get a conversation between Omega Sentinel and Nimrod, excuse me, about a whole thing.
What I was going to say though? I was about to say, I guess we haven't gotten to I guess you're kind of going in a bit of a circle.
Yeah.
When you were talking about what Professor X and Magneto kind of run into, because Admiral Akbar knows exactly what that is.
It's a trap. Indeed. It is.
So go on.
But they did not. Yeah, but they didn't know it at the time. But we ended up knowing, and put it that way, because they didn't really let that part be known until later on. Oh wait, you cut out. Hold on, what'd you say?
I muted myself. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
No, it was a pretty brutal way that they got suckered into that trap too.
True.
That's definitely a Mystique move right there.
True.
We've kind of seen the re-emergence of Mystique as a non-hero character. Like, we have officially washed away all of Rebecca Romijn. Well, not Rebecca Romijn, more like Jennifer Lawrence, out of the Mystique character with this particular character turn.
Right. Yeah. Not that she was far into that anyway, but she was just kind of on the quiet council, kind of quiet up until recently. So yes, so there is that, and they end up in a trap, and like I said, we cut back to this conversation between Omega Sentinel and Nimrod, and we get an origin story of Orcus, which I'm pretty sure we have not known about it, and come to find out that, and this is where the aha moment comes in. One, it's pretty much a reverse of what Moira and Charles and them were doing on the mutant side, but for Orcus's side.
Right.
And then, and it is even said in the course of this conversation that this is basically a reverse Days of Future Past.
Mm-hmm. It actually comes up in the dialogue.
Mm-hmm. And it was at that moment I was like, holy shit, why didn't I pick that up earlier? And kind of a Terminator situation also, but Days of Future Past, let's just stick with that. And it's going into that, we get the origins of Orcus and Omega Sentinels dealing with that. I don't know what that one page was about before the start of that or when that conversation started, but I assume that had something to do with where she's originally from, but I don't know because it seemed kind of weird. I know I don't know.
Just that.
It's when Nimrod was like, well, right before the page where Nimrod says,
"Oh, the one with like the 21 and all that." I think our review copy got hijacked by something.
I'm not sure because I'm not sure. I was kind of wondering about that, but I don't know if that's the case because it feels like it's kind of in line with the conversation, weirdly enough. But you might be right about that. But to bring it back home,
yeah, I was about to say what we can't do is compare it to a physical copy because I wasn't able to pick up my pull this week. So
right, and any other copies we can get our hands on is probably won't be right at this particular moment. So we just got to go with that for whatever it is. It just seemed kind of weird not to place at first, but at the same time, it's like I don't know. There's parts of that seem like maybe it's supposed to be leading into something we don't know.
Right.
But yeah, so like I said, so we basically get the origins of Orcus, excuse me, not Orchid, and that's kind of leads us into the end of this issue where Charles and Eric are fall for this trap and get to the resistance. Like I said earlier, meet this heavy resistance.
Exactly. So as just to recap, there's so many little things that this issue does and provides for increasing your level of understanding of all of Hickman's ex mumbo jumbo. And this is going to be a vital issue for anyone who wants to figure out what they've been reading, because it's not unheard of. It's not the first time that we've seen a mystery organization all of a sudden be in full force and effect at the beginning of a story and proving itself to be an adversary. But to find out how this organization came to be in not even a roundabout way, in just a very direct way, we find it out right here in this issue. We're like, oh, okay, now all of that stuff at the very beginning makes so much more sense.
Right.
And that I felt that was super informative and definitely increased, I think, my understanding. Sounds like with Roddycat as well. And I think that's going to make this issue pretty pivotal for most people's reading.
Right. And to find out that it was pretty much a parallel of what we saw in the beginning of, almost a parallel of what we saw in the beginning of Hoxpox, in that, the origins of how this organization and and how the mutants came to be to this point. It was kind of interesting in itself. Where it's going to lead, we'll see. Like they even touched on, because I wasn't sure how far they were going to get into it, stuff from the future stuff. Like it definitely tied in some of that stuff that we thought like maybe they were saving for something else, but it's definitely kind of tying some of that in. There's still some loose ends on that part also, but like I said, there's a lot of stuff from Hoxpox that got thrown out there to where we know that was going to come back in, and a lot of that just kind of got folded in here to say that, okay, here's what this is, keep on going from here. Now the rest of that I'm sure will come out at some other point.
All right. I would just add before we wrap up our discussion on this issue. Firstly, I thought one of my favorite bits of dialogue here is during the the meeting of the minds between the White Queen, Emma Frost, Destiny, and Mystique, where Destiny says, after it's revealed that Emma has been let in on some of the big secrets of Krakoa, and Destiny asks, "How are you taking it?" And I'm going to use this line afterwards. As expected, in stride and with no small measure of grace.
Right.
I lost it. I was cackling with laughter when I read that.
Indeed, yeah.
I'm like, I definitely have to save that one for future use. And the other thing I wanted to mention, just in passing, is that seeing Destiny on the page and seeing how her clairvoyant powers are depicted and how she's giving these prophecies,
right,
is obviously very reminiscent for people of a certain vintage when they think back to Destiny really wasn't a main factor in the X books or in comics in general until the mid 80s.
right.
And the mid 80s is when she becomes a somewhat prominent figure, at least in the pages of X-Men. I distinctly remember her from the Fall of the Mutant stories.
Yes.
And just before that, I think she was running around with Mystique when she was running Freedom Force with the other former Brotherhood of Evil Mutants characters. And that's, I think, where we saw her most prominently in the 80s. And I just remember just always being kind of annoyed at her at her prophecies, but that was the very young kid, the not even let's say preteen when I was reading that stuff. That or even like early teen, preteen to early teen,
right,
where I was reading that stuff and getting a handle on Destiny and her character. So, I kind of flashed back to, she's kind of annoying, but okay, that's just my subjective 2 cents.
I mean, I can see that because at a certain point you thinking back on it, you're just like, well, now you could say like, well, she was just the exposition / the foreboding that the books ended up having, especially in those events, because anytime she says something, it was like, oh my God, or this or that, or like, the end is coming or something like, whatever,
right,
whatever. And so she was pretty much that piece of it. And at the time, and like you said, we were kind of young, I could see where that would be kind of annoying, but at the same time, like I said, knowing what we know now, it was not like, okay, she was, I'm not gonna say vital, but she was a piece that.
Well, yeah, but she was a storyteller. She was an element of storytelling, exactly. Like you said, and it's just something that you don't necessarily appreciate at that age.
Exactly. So, but yeah, like I said, looking back on it now, it's like, yeah, you can see where she served a purpose. But yeah, back then it was like, yeah. So
it's like, yeah, we get it. Can we get back to the X-Men, please? So, but anyway, all right. I think we can move on from this. This is definitely a candidate for Click of the Week for me.
Same. I would definitely say that because it definitely just blew the lid off of a few different things. So we'll see how that goes. Next up, though, I guess, do we want to hit Amazing?
Yeah, because that's really the only other book that we have in common. Because we have Hellions in common also.
Well, that and that Captain Iron Man book. But...
Oh yeah. I was about to say, like, you could talk more freely about that. I didn't want to note that down, but you can definitely talk about that.
And I feel like that's kind of a quick hit.
Right. So I will cover the creative team on Amazing Spider-Man number 80. Bayhive. Because if we say Bay, we have to say Bayhive, or else the Bayhive will actually come after us. So this issue is written by Cody Ziglar, with art by Ivan Fiorelli, Carlos Gomez, and Paco Medina. Colors are by Rochelle Rosenberg, and letters by our favorite paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. So just as the previous issue number 80 promised, that was last week, right?
Yes.
So this this kind of sub numbering, as it were, with the beyond numbering, the BEY. We're following this kind of side story, or running in parallel to the main Amazing story. And in this, we have May Parker looking for any sort of clue and any sort of aid to help out these doctors who just don't know what to do with Peter Parker's condition. And, just bear in mind, they've allegedly exhausted the doctors. They thought about going to Doctor Strange, and obviously he's indisposed because of the events of the death of Doctor Strange, and even Tony Stark. And I'm like, Reed Richards, anybody? Seriously, like Reed Richards, anybody?
You're right, but he's also busy. Or Bruce, but at the same time, both of them are kind of tied into other things. So
right. Just Reed Richards, anybody? He's. I'm just saying. So, but in this case, May Parker sees fit to hit up one of her old beaux, and we're not talking about speakers. One of her old beaux. That being Otto Octavius. And she basically has to withstand some mildly annoying sexual harassment to get Otto Octavius's help to figure out a way to isolate what is affecting Peter Parker and keeping him comatose. And without going too deep into this issue, which is very much the definition of filler, they are successful.
Yes, which I was surprised about. I'm not gonna lie, because the end of this, just to kind of cut ahead, I'm not saying what happens, but and 8-7 has been on the money and kind of been saying it, but I and the way this thing's been running is probably a lot better than the last the last arc of Spidey, but or the last event of Spidey, I guess you could say, but. Right. They've still got a little bit to go, and I know this is a shorter run because of how often it's coming out. Regardless of that, I was kind of surprised that what happens at the end of the book happened here.
I get it. I absolutely get it. I kind of was as well.
Yeah. So so a little backstory for those that didn't know. Back a while ago, I tried to block this out of my mind. Aunt May and Otto Octavius, aka Dr. Octopus, was a couple to the point of almost getting married. He was selling himself off as something. Like I said, I vaguely remember, and I try to forget about it because it's kind of icky. And this story, this particular issue, didn't do anything to dissuade me of that particular notion. Especially with the way Otto was talking.
Yeah.
But like I said, to May's credit, she kind of handled it. She handled it in a way. She kind of played it to whatever to a certain point.
Right. So she definitely deflected and played defense. So
indeed,
she definitely did a good job at that. And it turns out that ultimately Otto shows that he has something resembling a heart at the end of this.
Yeah. Which, to his credit, for her, he definitely did. Even back then, he for what would amount to love for Dr. Octopus, he actually did care about May in his own way. And that still bears out here, as given what happens at the end of this, even despite what happens before the end of this. Which, honestly, when you're dealing with somebody like Dr. Octopus and Aunt May, if you know enough about them two, even if you did not know they were together, kind of makes sense. It's like, yeah, there was going to be a boiling point, and it was just going to go the way it did, and still something happens out of it. So, and there's really not much else to say about this issue outside of that, because as Agent 70 said, it's kind of filler. Which we have talked about these little side issues, especially in the last 6 to 8 months, being more filler than useful. And again, that last event / arc or story that an Amazing kind of bit was a lot of that. This one has one good thing coming out of it, and that's what happens at the end, which wouldn't
exactly. And you know what's funny is that there's a bit of a sidebar at the end where editor Nick Lowe actually says, "Hey, these particular Beehive tie-ins are super important to the main story because it's not every day that a tie-in includes something happening to one of the main characters. That's important."
Sure.
So, I feel like that's almost like directly addressing what we were criticizing the previous dot whatever issues from the previous Spencer run. So,
right.
But in any event, I think that wraps our conversation on number 80 BEY Hive for Amazing Spider-Man.
Right. So
do you have something else?
So this is basically going into next issue 81,
right.
Which I believe, which I know a couple of issues have been kind of leading up to this, which is kind of getting back on track. And if the cover is anything to believe, there's going to be a meeting of a couple of other Spider characters.
Yep.
So I'm slightly looking forward to that, because with this whole Beyond thing, it's like I'm still on the fence and thinking, like, where is this leading? And especially with the end of this, is like, well, okay, with what happened at the end of this, it's like, well, clearly this is starting to wrap up, because if this is the case, it's not necessarily the case, but it's going somewhere hopefully beneficial. But we'll see. That being said, like I just said, we can go to the I guess, unless we got some
Hellions. That's the last book that we have in common.
Okay, sure. Yeah, we'll have that on. So Hellions.
Right. And what's funny is that Hellions is I'll give off the I'll give the creative team and let you take the reins from there. Hellions number 18 is written by Zeb Wells with art by Zay Carlos and Steven Segovia. Colors are by Rain Barreto and letters by VC's Ariana Mayer. Take it away, Roddy Cat.
So, as I find, where did I put the doggone pink? That's right next to Hellions. There we go. So yeah, this is the last issue of the book. And with that, this pretty much the whole thing gets wrapped up. I mean, I can't remember everything that has happened in this book, but because everything, a lot of stuff, well, some things, this book was kind of sort of on its own, with the exception of the sort of X stuff, and even then they were kind of still on their own in a way. Like, yeah,
I think the last time I read a Hellions issue in full was probably the Hellfire Gala.
Right, there is that also.
So I think at that point that was the last time I actually read a Hellions issue in full, because this issue showed me, in the recap page, I had missed a ton, and got me very much caught up with what has been happening in the pages of Hellions. Yeah. So a lot has happened since the Hellfire Gala to this band of misfits.
This is true.
And I will hand it back to Roddy Cat with what I would say is just the stories revolving around these particular characters, these misfit X characters. The stories are not over yet, because we don't have any sort of finality when it comes to them at the end of this particular story, save for maybe 2.
There we go. Yeah, I was gonna say that. So yes. So if you're watching the video version, you can see the cover of it, and it says the final fate of Hellions, not unlike Fast and Furious, but definitely not that. After the events of the last couple of issues, or particularly last issue, which the Hellions get into trouble because of basically what amounts to the two that gets the two people that gets smacked with some sentencing, or one in particular, because one of
they get penalized pretty, because they what it is, without completely spoiling it for folks who may want to read this, is that they break one of Krakoa's founding laws,
which is what I was about to get to. Correct. Gotcha. So they do that, and this is pretty much the quiet counseling, handing down the sentence, or the ultimate sentence, and that only one other person has gotten, and that has happened at the beginning of Hoxpox. One other person has pretty much violated this to a point to where to receive the sentencing. So they're dealing with that, and come to find out that I totally forgot that what happened to one of the characters that gets sentenced, that they had died or something had happened to them fatally, to where they needed to get resurrected. And I've been reading Hellions, so that's about beside the point. And they decided to share their fate with the person who was ultimately getting the brunt of the sentencing. And the rest of which, honestly, I'm kind of glad about because neither one of these are characters that I cared that much about, even going back to the old X Factor days. And I'm sitting, even when they were on this book, I'm sitting here like, why are they here? But that being said, like that happens, but the rest of the issue pretty much wraps up what happens to the rest of the team. And as Agent 70 said, that yeah, this is not necessarily the end of their stories, but I assume just like the rest of the X-Books, they'll probably show up in other places.
Right.
Including one curious storyline that had been kind of teased a bit going back a few issues, and that of which and one part that I just kind of forgot from a few issues ago, that has to do with Scott Summers' brother Alex, aka Havoc.
Yeah, that particular plot line definitely was revealed to be not dropped and is probably going to rear its ugly head very soon.
Yes, indeed. Which, hey, these X books kind of already no shortage of little plot lines so that they can go off of, but a lot of them have been going the way of, as we saw with last week's New Mutants. And wait, did you finally read that actually?
New Mutants? Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well,
you can go ahead and spoil it. I'll read it.
Well, no. Basically, because we talked about it then, it was basically trying to validate certain villainous mutants, or reform, or whatever you want to call it. Whether we're going to get that here, we don't know the case of that, but we definitely know that there's some shades of something going on with that little thing. Outside of that, like I said, the rest of the book is just pretty much wrapping up or getting the others to a particular place in their stories, I guess. I can do without seeing a couple of these characters again, honestly. Two of which I've already taken off the board. One other,
right?
I never liked in the first place. Also, whatever's going to happen with him, who knows? But we do actually get a fairly nice turn from a couple of people that there's, because there's been something kind of brewing with them that we may or may not see going forward. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it was pretty much a nice, neat wrap up of the Hellions storyline, whatever it was, with the exception of their dealings with Sinister. But that also, which actually kind of reminds me, going back to Inferno, that got brought up then between Magneto and no, actually, I think that was here where they were talking about no, that was here actually. So Emma Frost, and brings up a question because Emma Frost and Magneto was talking about Sinister and how he's this and that and the other, and sound like they have plans to deal with him at some point, which leads me to the question is like, is this before Inferno or not? I don't know if we can really gauge that because obviously Emma is on the outs with Eric and Magneto as of currently in Inferno.
Right. It's hard to tell. I would say this is before Inferno.
Maybe.
But it's hard to tell.
Right. And there is no, because obviously this is the end of the book, so there is no reading list at the back of this issue. Because it's and as a matter of fact, at the end of Inferno, I believe the last Hellions book was 17, and that was before Inferno.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows where this is. Regardless, it is what this is on this one. Like I said, we'll see some of these other people at some other point in the future, I'm sure, in other books. That being said, though, I guess we can go to rapid fire.
Alrighty, I will spin it up.
I ain't got time to bleed.
Yeah, rapid fire, fools.
All right, I guess I'll lead off. I think I have maybe a book less, one book fewer than Roddy Cat here. I'll start with Batman number 118. It's written by Joshua Williamson with art by Jorge Molina and Mikel Janin, colors by Tomo Morey, and letters by Clayton Cowles. So this is essentially the wrap up to Fear State and I guess Future State. because I don't think Future State covers Batman and oh my gosh, is it Jace Fox?
Jace Fox, yes.
Right. I don't think it covers them not being in Gotham Future State anymore, right?
I believe they were still in Gotham as of the end of
right.
the
So
April
then
issue.
we have officially we're about to eclipse everything that was in Future State, final, and moving on into new territory because this issue basically moves us to close off a lot of the stories that have been popping up, that have been going on in Batman and in the Batman books over the last several months, where Gotham is celebrating the ending of Fear State and the stop, the let's just say the canceling of the magistrates' plans for Gotham City, and Simon Saint, his plans as well were all canceled, and we have what kind of amounts to a gigantic celebration for Gotham. Some villains try to break that up, and the Batman puts a stop to that. Ultimately, what we get at the end of the issue, though, is the start of Bruce Wayne's new journey as Batman, which is going to take him away from Gotham. It actually takes him to Southeast Asia, where I recognize some Bahasa Indonesia being spoken, but in a fake DC country or DC location, because that's what DC does. And they're poorly named as well. It's actually called Badnesia. I'm like, really? DC? So at the end of the issue, we get a mystery for Batman to solve, and the injection of a classic DC villain that is not a member of Batman's Rogues Gallery. So that is Batman number 118.
So
next
quick,
up,
wait, before you get to that, so this may or may not be interesting of interest to you, because if I'm not mistaken, I skimmed through Future State Gotham, which is, I think, just ended this past week or two. That right there, because it's basically Red Hood and Jace at the end of this, and I believe that pretty much takes care of that part of getting him out of Gotham. If you're interested in that part, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. I mean, I hadn't been keeping up with that particular title. Yeah. I was just thinking back to the original Future State limited series.
Right.
So, next up is, I'm sorry for skipping around alphabetically, but I have The Good Asian number 7 of 10. So we are in the home stretch on this limited series, this noir limited series written by Pornsak Pichetshot, with art by Alexandra Tefenki, colors by Lee Luffridge, and letters by Jeff Powell. So, as I said, we are in the home stretch. This is issue 7 of a 10-issue limited series, and we get lots of revelations. We got some in issue 6, and we definitely got some here in issue number 7. Definitely some double and triple crossing going on. This is a crime noir novel after all, a crime noir comic book after all. And there's plenty of backstory here explaining at least one of the antagonists' story. This particular antagonist has proven to be the person under the mask at the beginning of the limited series, and we get some background into why they wear a mask. And unfortunately for the hero of our story, things are not looking good for Edison Hark. They are not. So this is a pretty rough issue for the hero of our story. Next up
was this originally slated as a miniseries, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's always been a 10 issue.
Gotcha.
This is one of the reasons why I started off doing making notes of how long these miniseries are.
Okay.
You probably this is a little bit of inside baseball, but Roddy Cat will probably remember. I've started, over the last several months to try to take note of these limited series so I can say during our review sections how long these particular stories are going to last.
Right.
So, for example, Inferno was issue 3 of 4. So we have one issue left in Inferno, and in Good Asian we have, as of now, 3 issues left, 8, 9, and 10. So, as I said, Edison Hark is in a bad way at the end of this issue. Next up is Devil's Reign #1. This is, I want to say, a 6-issue limited series. I got a little sloppy here. I did not put in #1 of 6. But Devil's Reign is a 6-issue limited series. And it is written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Marco Cacchetto, colors by Marcio Meniz, and letters by Clayton Cowell. So this is a direct follow-up to the events in Daredevil, including Daredevil Matt Murdock getting out of prison and Daredevil Elektra Natchios basically being his partner as a female Daredevil. We kind of catch up with the Stromwinds, who are like a rich 1%er family of political and obviously moneyed elites in New York City who have been who've been messing with Wilson Fisk and basically put him in power as the mayor of New York. And we have we revisit them at the beginning of this issue. So it seems like there's going to be a renewed focus on those characters as the series moves forward. Ultimately, without spoiling this, because I think Roddy Cat will probably catch up with this at some point. The bottom line here is that something happens to Wilson Fisk specifically in this issue that causes him to go down the route. Actually, it actually happens. It's kind of teased at the end of the Daredevil issue, but it really is brought to a head at the beginning of this issue, and it's this particular catalyst that starts Wilson Fisk down what is a somewhat familiar road, and that being the Superhero Registration Act. But this is another aspect of the concept and the intent of that act, right? It's not necessarily a means of regulating. It's more of an outlawing, let's say. And ultimately where that goes is kind of predictable, but it's still very well done because Cacchetto and Zdarsky are a very effective team together. And we can see lines being drawn, sides being taken, and some of the more subtle dangling plot threads from the Daredevil series being picked up. So we will see where this comes out in the next issue, but I thought this was a very effective first issue for this limited series. Next up is the finale of Black Cat. And it's a shame that Black Cat is going away for a little while, at least in terms of having a regular book. This is Giant Size Black Cat Infinity Score #1. It's written by Jed MacKay with art by C.F. Villa, colors by Brian Reber, and letters by Ferran Delgado. This is the consistent, and I give them all their flowers, all the props for being a consistent creative team for this volume of Black Cat. They have done an incredible job, along with Pepe Larraz on covers, to really keep the quality of this Black Cat book at a very high level. And without spoiling things, because I know Roddy Cat has been off of this Infinity Score stuff, but we find out in this issue what the Infinity Score was, what Felicia wanted with these stone wielders / possessors, because if you're not familiar, the Infinity Gems have basically bonded with a disparate group of people around the world, as opposed to being just gems to be found. They have become somewhat sentient in that regard by bonding with people, kind of, not unlike a Green Lantern ring, searching out, people who would, exhibit, willpower in the Lantern ring regard. But, at the end of the day, we still don't have the best grasp on all of these Infinity characters, these Infinity Gem characters. But we find out what Felicia Hardy wanted with them. And the series, this issue, helps the series end on a pretty fun note. So I really enjoyed this. I think Jed MacKay has a great grasp of Felicia Hardy's voice. We do get a little bit of Odessa Drake and the New York Thieves Guild in here, but there's definitely no finality to it. So that particular concept being revived is still in play. Those characters are still in play, as well as the Black Cat and her crew. So I really, just to wrap, I really enjoyed this issue. It's a lot of fun. It really brings together why this whole thing actually did matter a little bit. It's not a complete throwaway in terms of a story. There's a great 2-page splash that CF Via completely rocks. And I would hope that when Roddy Cat gets to that and finally gets to reading through this, or at the very least flipping through this, that he'll remember what I just said and see what I meant. I'm looking forward to Jed MacKay hopefully being able to pick up the Black Cat again at some point, because as I said, he's got a great grasp of the character and the character's voice. And that's it for me.
Yeah, and I feel like, and we will probably say this again closer to what we're already at the end of the year, but when we get to our deliberations, we will probably be bringing back Black Cat in, because it is definitely one of the books that we have consistently liked through this year and last year, thanks to the creative team and their treatment, not their treatment, but their the way they did the way they did the thing with her.
Look, I would just add that comic book runs end. I don't necessarily know if MacKay has more Black Cat up his sleeve. I think he does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily know if this would have lasted beyond this Infinity Score thing, because I don't know what the sales were. I really don't. I don't know if Black Cat was garnering enough sales to justify having her own title.
Right.
But it's a shame that if that is the case, or that was the case, that people were not reading this, because it is absolutely worthwhile. It's a lot of fun, and the character was, I believe, reinvigorated by Jed MacKay, and giving her a great voice and a great take, and bringing in that Ocean's 11 style, whatchamacallit, heist storytelling.
Right, and I believe we probably said as much, even talking to her when he even started writing, because we weren't really sure how long this was going to last. I'm surprised it even lasted this long, and even ended up being bummed that it ended a couple of times, even though we knew it was going to get picked up. But because of some event, I guess it was part of the reason why it did. So I guess we're thankful for that, because we don't know. It probably possibly could have ended before this,
right? If it were, I mean, they actually mentioned that. I don't think this is, it's in the voice of one of the crew.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is Jed MacKay at the end talking, as like a prose type closing, and thanks. I don't know if it's the editor or if it's Jed MacKay, but they talk about how that first volume ended in part because of the onset of the pandemic.
Right.
So, this is one of the casualties of that. And I guess they had to retool it a little bit going forward, but it's just a reminder of what we've lost, as a result of the pandemic.
Yep. All right.
I'm not even, going to talk about the 700,000 plus United States citizens, who died during the pandemic. So
indeed. But like I say,
worldwide millions. So
yeah, look forward to us possibly bringing up the Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, and the creative team again, and probably shoot a few short weeks. I'm sure I feel like we can make that promise this time, hopefully.
Right.
As opposed to last year, but we're not gonna talk about that. Anyway, let me go ahead and get my books out of the way real quick because I only have a few more books. Starting off with Batman 89 number 4. So here's something interesting about this. So first of all, the creative team goes as such. Where the heck did I put the creative team? Oh, here we go. Writer Sam Hamm, art by Joe Quinones, colors by Leonardo Ito, and letters by not VC's Clayton Cowles at this point, or for this particular project. So, for those that don't know, this is set in the world of it's not the first Batman movie, but in the world of Batman 89. More specifically, we come to find out because I was questioning this a few issues back of where this is being set because of some characters who show up that were not originally in any of the movies, or not that one or the subsequent movies after that. This is pretty much taking place after Batman Returns. So it's weird that it's called Batman 89 because it kind of starts off there, but it swiftly moved through and past Batman Returns, which is the second movie, and which introduced Catwoman, Penguin, etc., etc. We know this because this particular, and I think the last issue also made mentions of certain characters from the movies, such as Oswald Cobblepot and Max Schreck, and of course Catwoman Selena Kyle. So she's already been in this, but in this particular issue, as we come to find out, Robin is introduced into this world, and I'm just going to say that it is not any of the Robins that you know of, although they may be taking liberties from one more recent Robin that has been introduced in the regular DC universe. In fact, placing this character in the same place as the other Robin is from. Now, whether they are going to try to they're seemingly trying to amalgam, and it kind of seems like they are, that character with this other Robin, or this character with the other Robin that has already been established, kind of remains to be seen, but it looks like that's kind of what they're doing. Weirdly enough, because it's not even the same name, but you can see some similarities between this character and that other character. And part of this book takes place in the DC part of town called Burnside. So if you know anything about your Robins and you know anything about that particular place, you kind of get an idea of who I'm talking about, but it's not that character. That being said, like I said, Robin's introduced. This character, who we come to find out may end up being Robin, or was at least dressing up as Robin for part of this, finds out Bruce Wayne's identity, and they have a little chat during the course of this issue. But also we come to find out that another character that is in here, one Harvey Dent, is pretty much going headlong into their other identity, let's say. And if you know anything about Harvey Dent, you know anything about the other character, and you know anything about the DC universe, the DC movie universe, you know where this is headed. Because it's pretty much going into another movie that comes after this, in a way. But it's a version of not the same person that plays that character. And I'll leave it at that. So they're kind of doing some things with this book. I don't know to what end, and I'm not even sure how far they're going to go. But they've definitely been using the DC universe and kind of introducing the kind of melding the Batman movie universe into the DC into a DC-ish continuity, but not okay, but not the actual one. That being said, next up, and I believe
Jesus,
what
the hell?
What in the world is
No,
that?
that's me. That's me. I was tapping something on my phone and something popped up. Like, what the hell?
Next up for me, Captain America Iron Man #1, which I believe Agent 70 said he read.
I did read this, and Roddy Cat is free to speak on this.
Yeah, there's really not much to say about this one. Writer Derek Landy, art Angel. Is it Angel Unzieta? Is it Angel?
I would say Angel.
Angel. Okay. Well,
unless it's just unless they're from the United States and they just go by Angel.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I don't know, so I apologize if I screw up your name. But regardless, color artist Rachel Rosenberg and letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. Excuse me. I don't want to.
He's our favorite paisan. What are you doing? Go ahead.
So, I don't know if you, Agent 70, read that last Falcon and Winter Soldier miniseries.
I skimmed it because I remember, there was like a head of Hydra issue and stuff like that, and like a young girl. So yeah,
there we go. So that's what takes place, which I guess makes sense because the writer of this, I believe, was the writer of that and created this character. And this basically tying this character, Veronica Eden, from that last miniseries to one Tony Stark Iron Man in a way that is kind of classic Tony. Let's put it that way. Which leads to I guess ties them in the past, but now brings it forward to after the Falcon and Winter Soldier miniseries, and they're in dealings with that. Without going too far into it, basically, Tony has a dealing with her in the past. Something happens, I guess, probably directly after that Falcon and Winter Soldier miniseries, to where she's in custody. She gets out of custody. Iron Man tries to recapture her. Cap comes into the feature, who had nothing to do with the Falcon Winter Soldier miniseries, but he kind of knows about it from it because obviously Sam and Bucky told them about it, and that leads them into trying to apprehend her. And the other part of this is this team, whom I have no idea who these people are, because the whole 51 States initiative from a few years back is something that I try to forget about and didn't really read anything about. But there's this team that kind of comes up, and I guess they're going to be
they drag these characters out of the archives for sure, like basically kicking and screaming.
So what we have him is what we have here. Even Cap's like, did you get training? I know.
That's right.
Like
I got a kick out of that part.
Yeah.
Like, didn't you get training? What are you doing?
Yeah, right. It was just like, okay, we know where they were supposed to be trained. Did you get training? What's going on here? And that part was real funny. So we come to find out that Cap and Tony are teaming up, and I guess they're going to have this team in tow, maybe, possibly, we don't know, to apprehend this former potential head of Hydra, which, like I said, and that gets the last Falcon and Winter Soldier miniseries. Most of that, it comes from there. So yes, so I don't know. I'm going to, at the very least, read the next issue. Like, I wasn't really sure what this was, what was the premise of this going to be about, and now that I have, I don't know if it's going to be that interesting, but I know they're trying to do something with this other character. Or I guess they're trying to do something with this other character, or, we'll see if they actually are.
Listen, they're getting some kind of push because they're getting Alex Ross covers.
True, but we also know that, hey, what better way to try to boost up sales is to try to get at the very least, a good looking cover or a
variants,
team,
yeah.
yes, or a creative team, or it's particularly the art to kind of buffer sales a little bit. Now, granted, like this writer, I don't know too much about the writer, work outside of that last miniseries, when we've seen the artists in a couple of places here and there, especially most recently, and everybody else, obviously. But so, like I said, you don't know whether this miniseries is going to come into anything. We'll see, or it's just something that this is like, hey, we got the story, here you go, pop it out.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, though, is Magic #9. All my Magic the Gathering fans out there are probably not reading this book, but you may want to, though. Guess what? Written by Jed MacKay, who we just talked about with Black Cat. Illustrations by Ed Guara, colors Ariana Consoni, and letters by Ed Dukeshire. Excuse me. The crux of this issue, and again, if you know your Magic lore, and I know probably one or two people probably do, this book has to do with like 3 particular planeswalkers who were basically put together to solve a mystery that was happening in Ravnica. It kind of blossomed into something a little bit bigger, and in this particular issue, they're basically girding up for a big multiversal fight, because the big bad is kind of coming and causing some havoc, or going to be causing havoc if they were allowed to get to Ravnica or someplace that they can gain power. So they come up to, in this particular issue, they come up with a plan to stave that off. And while doing so, the Gatewatch, which again, Magic the Gathering fans will know who this is, get reassembled and expanded, because the Gatewatch was the Gatewatch was pretty much a group of planeswalkers who, not necessarily Avengers-like, but they basically defended the multiverse, if I'm not mistaken. But like I said, the Gatewatch was put together so they could kind of stave off this threat, and with this plan that the 3 main folks of this book have put together, including one other planeswalker who, in the lore of Magic the Gathering, at this point supposedly dead, and and I don't know, I assume they're working closely with Wizards for this, but supposed to be dead, but not necessarily dead, because they're kind of teaching at Strixhaven, which is a school that had an expansion a few months back. But it seems as if they may be tying a little bit of that. But regardless, this other planeswalker, well-known planeswalker, joined the fight, and so do a bunch of others for this fight that's going to happen seemingly next issue. I'm not sure what the sales of this book are, but it's kind of fun. Like I said, Jed MacKay's writing it, so in that it's been pretty good, and the art's been all right. I feel like they're starting to wrap this up, but I don't know if it's going to be the end of the story or the end of this book. But I guess we'll see in the next issue or 2, because they could presumably just go with and this is supposed to be an ongoing, but I don't know, like I said, if they have plans to keep it going after they get through this arc. But we shall see. Next up, Star Wars #19. And this will start to round out my books. Written by Charles Soule, art by Marco Castillo, excuse me. Colors by Rachelle Rosenberg, letters by VC's Clayton Cowles. So we are past that whole War of the Bounty Hunters and the whole Han's body, Han's carbonated body being where it's supposed to be, going into Return of the Jedi, but we're not in Return of the Jedi just yet.
I was saying carbonated makes it sound like he's become fizzy.
Yeah,
sorry. I heard you correct it, and I was laughing.
They put him in the Soda Stream, and now he's all fizzy. But so yeah, we're kind of past that, and the rebellion is trying to get back to other orders of business because they mentioned the fact that Shara Bay is still uh, trapped in a star destroyer, and they got other things going on. But as I'm about to get to in a minute, there's this other event that is kind of in the way, as they call it, the Syndicate War. But like I said, I will get to more of that in a minute. But through all of that, so we get all that out of the way, and through the course of this, Luke goes back to his sulking ways, and I'm not with the Force, and I got to find out this and that and the other. So the rest of this book is pretty much as the rebellion are trying to get their plans together to do what they need to do to get supplies and whatever. Luke's kind of like, well, I need to go find out how to be a Jedi. He takes off with R2 to do just like that. And as I say in my notes, there's a big road trip that happens because he's looking for some Jedi temples that have been pretty much ransacked by the Empire. He's led somewhere and meets this one person who apparently helps him, but I feel like this person, there's more to meet the Eisen this person, but I could be wrong. But he does come away from this issue with a valuable item, let's just say, that is that we have seen a few different times in Star Wars lore. I almost said Star Trek, and that would be bad. Let's say a certain source of information that he's going to use in the next couple of issues, almost like in the beginning of the first volume of Star Wars. I feel like they're kind of using it in the same vein. But we shall see. Last but not least, Star Wars Crimson Reign #1. And again, after the whole business with Han and whatnot. So if folks did not know, we come to find out that Kira of the movie Solo fame had Han's body for a while, but now she doesn't. It's now back in the hands of Jabba the Hutt. But the Crimson Reign, oh shoot, Crimson Reign. I keep calling. The Crimson Dawn's plans don't stop there because this was all a big push for them to kind of gain some footing in the galaxy as a group to be reckoned with, if not, useful to the galaxy. And I go so far, and let me go ahead and say the creative team, written by Charles Soule. I believe this is part 2 of a 3-part event type situation, if I'm not mistaken. Charles Soule's writing this, art by Stephen Cummings, colors by Guru EFX, and letters by VC's Travis Lanning. So, Crimson Dawn's basically putting together got a whole bunch of plans, and Kira's pretty much got a few pots got a few fires in the iron. So on one part, she's got a group of bounty hunters doing the thing for her. She's setting up the syndicate, these different syndicates, because she basically let it known that, hey, there might be a power vacuum based on what happened because of something that happened coming out of the last event, but it's not really like that. So she's basically started a gang war, and which is called the Syndicate War. And that's kind of what I alluded to back when I was just talking about Star Wars #19 that they alluded to. And she did this because obviously what better way to get herself on better standings with the underground or the underworld of the Star Wars universe than to start a war between them all. Makes sense, right? Without her being without them being implicated in it. So this particular issue kind of sets all of that up. She's like I said, she sets off some bounty hunters here, some assassins here, and I think she's got one other group robbing Vader's castle. To all the different ends. And at the end of this, we see that this is also setting up the possible downfall of the Crimson Dawn. Which I guess in a way makes sense because movie-wise, they never really showed up until so going into where this is taking place, which is still in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Yeah, they probably won't be around next year, I guess, after whatever this particular storyline, and I guess whatever that next thing Charles Soule is cooking up, and I know he is because he's talked about it on Twitter, is cooking up for this group. And that, folks, is the end of that, because there was a curious ending on this particular book, because that may or may not have something to do with a character that I thought was dead, but I'm not entirely sure. But like I said, we'll see. I guess we'll see going forwards in that. And with that, we can go to Clicks of the Week.
Clicks of the Week!
I think we did get one from Tim.
Yes, we did.
Yep, there we go. So yeah, Tim's click of the week was, and not a surprise, Inferno number 3.
Nice work, Tim. Thank you. And I second that as my click of the week as well.
Yes, because you did say that before the show. So, and you know it's a good book because little peek behind the scenes, a lot of times we don't necessarily know what our clicks is going to be before the show, unless it was really, really that outstanding.
Right.
And in this case, yeah, like I said, they got theirs. And
sometimes our minds get changed, during the show when, during the discussion of a book. So, if something really does kind of knock us on our butts beforehand, we kind of already know coming into the show.
True. And honestly, I'm slightly torn for different reasons between Inferno number 3 and Magic number 9.
That's fine. I mean, I'll tell you that in terms of my reading list, and just to give you a little bit of cover to give yourself more time, what I read actually was for the most part mostly really good this week. That Giant Size Black Cat Infinity Score number 1 was really good. Devil's Reign number 1 I thought was really good. So, those were also close contenders for me. Amazing Spidey number 80. Beehive, not so much.
Yeah.
But Devil's Reign number 1 was quality stuff, and Giant Size Black Cat Infinity Score number 1 was quality stuff. So, they did not come in very far behind of Inferno number 3.
In fact, you know what? I am definitely going to co-sign Inferno number 3 because it was very good. But I will say, if you are a Magic the Gathering fan, you should probably check out that series because it's actually pretty good for being light as it is. And with that, we're going to go into the going to the news section, but first, an ad read.
Our first ad read of the night is for Funko. Fun at first sight. It's your home for exclusive collectibles such as their world-famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel including t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise such as DIY pop figures. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. It is the holiday season after all. To place your first order with 10% off and to help keep our show free for you, please go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, you scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today. And now we get into the news.
And as we do every week, we start off with the cinematic news first up, which some would argue that this probably has nothing to do with anything we've ever talked about, but I thought it was fun. Gorillaz lead singer provides an update on animated Netflix film. So the Gorillaz, Damien Albarn, y'all know who that is if you know the Gorillaz, provided an update on the previously announced full-length Gorillaz film currently in development at Netflix. There was an interview with Apple Music, and Albarn teased that the film script is being written, stating that they're in LA because they're making a full-length film with Netflix. They're having a writing session in Malibu. Must be nice. And he went on to say that it's something we've been wanting to do for a very long time. It's been through so many incarnations, gorillas doing a movie. To which, if you know anything about the gorillas and a lot of their videos, there's been a weird through line within a lot of them. Maybe some would even say there's a storyline. But yeah, so I guess this is somewhat a logical step to it. Next up,
Eternals, The Suicide Squad, and Shang-Chi receive Best Visual Effects nominations from the Hollywood Critics Association. So these three films have received nominations for Best Visual Effects for what award is this? I guess it's the Hollywood Critics Association. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Because tis the season.
Oh no, it's the Hollywood Critics Association Film Awards. Right. They take place on January 8th. Okay, right. That's what I was looking for.
Yes, because tis award season, and you're going to hear a little bit of that. Actually, we already have, so. Next up, though. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Put that right there, just in case that ends up being a story later. For effect.
Should I be reloading this? Are you adding stuff?
No. Okay. Destin Daniel Cretton inks overall deal with Marvel Studios and Hulu's Onyx Collective, set for Disney Plus MCU series and Shang-Chi sequel.
Slam! Da, da, da. I'm sorry.
Yes, very well done. So, if folks don't know, Destin Daniel Cretton was the director of Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings. We were wondering if there was going to be a sequel to the movie, and here we found out, yes, there is. But he's also in development with Marvel Studios on a new MCU series for Disney Plus. Let's see. And apparently it's an exclusive multi-year overall deal with Disney. So shout out to him for that, I guess.
Yeah. Talk about writing in with ink, not with pencil, into his calendar for the next couple of years, right?
Yeah. They were like, hey, what you doing for the next couple of days? How about you do something for us? It says, under the big new overall deal, Cretton will develop TV projects for both Marvel Studios for Disney Plus and Onyx Collective all across all platforms, including Hulu. Maui-born Cretton will produce. I hope that's the way he pronounces his name, is not Cretan, because that doesn't even seem right. But anyway,
no, I think it's Cretton. Yeah. We've heard his name in the news enough.
Okay. Will produce through a new production company he is launching with partner Asher Goldstein, named Family Owned. Together, they will focus on building a slate of projects in film and TV that highlight the experiences of communities that have traditionally been overlooked by pop culture. And the article goes on from there, but we will not. So, hey, cool. Next up,
Kobe Smulders is set to reunite with Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury on Marvel's Secret Invasion, reprising her MCU role of Maria Hill. Secret Invasion is a Disney Plus television series. So this is the one that's going to be based on the Marvel Comics event. Obviously, it's going to extrapolate some story points from that event, but obviously be based mainly in MCU continuity. So Secret Invasion also stars Ben Mendelsohn reprising his role as Skrull Talos, Olivia Colman, Emilia Clarke, Kingsley Ben-Adir, Christopher McDonald, and Killian Scott. And you wonder how Marvel is able to pull in all of these actors, right?
Yeah. Some of which have had prior dealings with the parent company under another brand,
right?
So as folks will know, I feel like or maybe I'm saying this, or maybe I've seen this somewhere, but I feel like her being in the cast, it's going to be like a How I Met Your Skrull.
Yeah, right. I think so too.
Yeah, type situation. But hey, it makes sense because we hadn't seen Maria Hill in a good minute, so I'm sure this will address where she's been since the snap.
Well, no, yeah, we saw her at the end of Endgame.
Well, yeah,
But
so not.
That's the last time we've seen her. I
Yeah,
think.
but not in a significant role.
She's at the funeral.
Yeah. Well, again, not a significant role. Anywho,
same as that kid from Iron Man 2.
Man
Oh no,
3.
Iron Man 3.
Yeah. Which shit, he's even been in the comic books recently, so that's weird. But we'll actually possibly get into that later on in the comics. Anyway, Hawkeye writers had to beg Marvel to use the MCU's new Black Widow, apparently. And I guess potential spoilers for this week's Hawkeye, which we already talked about. So, but there's really not much else to say about this outside of the fact that Jonathan Igler, who is a writer and executive producer on, I believe, on Hawkeye, said that while Black Widow post-credit scene establishing Yelena's Hawkeye connection was Marvel's doing, it came in response to us begging for and making a good case for why Yelena had a place in our story, quote unquote. Revealing his logic behind the crossover idea, the Marvel Mad Men writer continued, I think what I can safely say about it right now is that there's an obvious connection between Clint's get over the loss of his best friend and the other person in the world who cared about the most about her. Which, sure. So, next up,
and this is some of the big news on the internet from this past week. Marvel has literally confirmed that Charlie Cox will eventually return as Daredevil if he joins the MCU. The quote is, "If you were to see Daredevil in upcoming things, Charlie Cox, yes, would be the actor playing Daredevil," says Marvel chief Kevin Feige. And that's the big news. He gave this statement out during the press tour for Spider-Man No Way Home. And obviously the caveat is, so if you were to see Daredevil in upcoming things, and obviously Feige's still holding that particular card close to the vest, but given some of the things that we have been teased, this may come to pass sooner rather than later.
Right. Yeah, like Agent 7 said, this was big news because this is kind of a thing of soap. And I believe side of that, like you saw people like Vincent D'Onofrio after this news came out, he's saying, "Hey, don't forget, I can't remember the girl's name, so I probably the woman's name. The lady who plays
Karen. That played Elektra?
No, who played Karen.
Oh, Deborah Ann Woll.
Thank you. Do not forget her, for this, because obviously, and we already know that Vincent D'Onofrio wouldn't mind coming back to play the Kingpin.
Right.
So who's to say as we were getting all of them together again? Who's to know? Or in what way, shape, or fashion? Who knows?
Exactly. And I just want to dwell a little bit on that last part of Roddy Cat's previous statement. We don't know if these characters are just going to be reintroduced into the MCU with altered backstories with their own context in the MCU, or if they're going to revive all or some of the Netflix continuity.
Correct.
So we don't know for sure exactly what they're going to do. I honestly don't foresee they're going to bring everything in from Netflix, but they'll probably pick and choose, much like they have with other things. They're just going to pick and choose with how they adapt this particular group of characters.
Yeah, like they have with Marvel stuff, like they've done with Star Wars, or like Star Wars part has done with their extended universe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
right. So I think it'll be an adaptation, not necessarily hey, everything that was on Netflix is canon now, because Netflix still owns those episodes.
Right. Which is kind of a bummer, because I feel like the legwork has been done on that front, and it would be to at least the audience's benefit who watch that stuff, to kind of have that already under the belt instead of trying to adapt something new for them. But yeah, like you just said, like Netflix owns those particular iterations, and so they're
that's what rules.
Exactly. Oh,
like Wu-Tang said,
cash rules everything around me. Yep.
Yep.
There is, if you by the way, in the clickbait section of the show notes, I believe we have a full, or if the full, if not a full, interview with Kevin Feige and oh shoot, I forgot who else it was. But basically, it's Feige probably talking about this stuff on.
Yeah, it was. I want to say it was one of the female producers.
Yes, it is. And I don't know why I'm blanking on her name.
Yeah, I'm blanking on her name as well. I know she has a really big hairdo in that particular interview.
Yes.
That's what I'm remembering. Isn't that terrible?
Amy Pascal.
There it is.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was Pascal.
Yeah.
So.
But yes, you're right, because because the picture in the artist was like, wow, she's got like some Bernadette Peters hair, which I don't know if too many people know who that even is. Anyway, next up though, No Way Home villains come face to face with Spider-Man in menacing new posters. Excuse me. So yes, we already know Spider-Man No Way Home is coming very, very soon, which is next week, which I guess we'll take this time to say that next week we will be on Movie Protocol again because of that. Agent 70's already got his tickets. I don't know if I'm going to have my tickets or even go.
Opening weekend.
Yeah, opening weekend, but we'll see.
Yeah, we just and let's not take any shots at Roddy Cat for this, because he has valid concerns. We all do, especially with the holiday season and people still not getting vaccinated and whatnot, and just being able to carry it even if they are vaccinated. So, it's a tough time to make these kinds of decisions, and especially given the magnitude of hype that's surrounding this movie. Mm-hmm. Roddy Cat is probably justified in not going opening weekend. That's really what it comes down to.
They dare say I'm definitely justified, but however, if you want to pay for my
just
ticket,
based on the crowds, based on the crowds.
However, if you want to pay for my ticket, my Cash App is I'm just kidding. But back to the news. Said photos for Spider-Man No Way Home feature Alfred Molina's Dr. Octopus, William Dafoe's Green Goblin, and Jamie Foxx's Electro. And if you're watching the video, you can see said photos of said posters right here as I scroll through them. And there's really not much else to be said about that. Next up.
All right, next up, in more big news that kind of shook the internet. After more than 3 years, we finally have our first look at the highly anticipated Spider-Verse sequel. So we have the first scene from the 2-part Spider-Verse sequel, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And it's pretty exciting. It dropped this past Saturday evening. So it's been a few days since it dropped. So we've had a chance to kind of digest it. But it is pretty fun, and the sequel is directed by Joaquim Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson. It's a different group of directors from the first one. The sequel will be written by David Callahan and Phil Lord and Chris Miller from the first movie. The sequel will see the return of Shamik Moore as Miles Morales, Jake Johnson as Peter Parker, and Haley Steinfeld, a.k.a. Kate Bishop, as Gwen Stacy. In addition to these returning characters, the sequel will also include Issa Rae as Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman. And as we also saw, it's going to include Spider-Man 2099. Spoiler alert, but not so much, because it's actually in that scene that's shown in the trailer or the sneak peek.
And at the end of the first movie.
Right.
Yes, and that's being played by Oscar Isaac, which I believe. Well, yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But
that leads into the next story.
Exactly. But I wanted to say before we get off of this one, I just rewatched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with my girlfriend, and who has not seen it, who had never seen it before, and she enjoyed it. So having come off of that, and then a couple of days later seeing this come out, which we had been teased about, like I think the day or two before, that they were going to be showing something on this. But it was great to see this, and very happy to. I don't know if we knew that this was supposed to be a 2-parter though.
No, I think that was the big news.
Right.
That was the big news, is that essentially, I mean, the way it was put to me is that Miles is getting his own trilogy.
Right.
And we have, this second Spider-Verse movie split up into 2 pieces. So.
Right. Yeah, like we knew the part about they wanted to do more food to it, and like you said, give Miles a trilogy, but we didn't know they were going to go the way of like as they've done with Harry Potter and Twilight, another
An
one,
Endgame.
and Endgame. Yeah, split up in a couple of like this is not new recently, but still, this one
Right.
I'm welcome about. Out of everything I just mentioned, this is the one I'm excited about. But yeah, coming out of that and going into the next one, um, which I'm assuming you did watch that teaser.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, yeah,
I watched it.
yeah.
And I understand that people are excited about it. I'm just like, okay, just, let's hope that they don't do too much with some of the other characters. I'm personally not that big a fan of the Kingpin from the Spider-Verse movie.
It was a choice.
I thought they went a little bit too much in one direction.
Yeah, it was a choice.
So, listen, every movie has to make those kinds of choices. Every project has to make those kinds of choices. So, it's just a matter of, how it all comes together as a whole. And I obviously understand that there's a lot of hype and a lot of appreciation for, this for this movie following up on Spider-Verse. So my hope is that they don't do too much with any one particular character, taking them in like a really wacky direction.
I mean, considering the premise they've kind of adapted and taken liberties from, how much more crazy could they get? Because let's face it, Spider-Verse, even for what I even know about the original storyline, it's kind of out there to a point. So, but yeah, so getting to the next related articles, Oscar Isaac agreed to play Spider-Man 2099 in this movie under one condition. And he basically says in this interview from Entertainment Weekly, that Phil Lord and Chris Miller revealed was that don't make me boring. He's made it says he's made a very complex character out of Miguel O'Hara, who's for those in the know, Spider-Man 2099, and he's definitely not boring, which we can kind of say from the comic end. I guess that's kind of true. I don't know. I've never really cared that much for Spider-Man 2099, but if I were to rate my Spider-Mans,
the character really hasn't been able to do much. Let's be honest. I didn't read that much of Spidey 2099 coming up. Well, I remember when it was launched. I think I have a copy of the first issue.
Yeah.
But it was part of the 2099 line, and I don't have any kind of affinity for that. So
yeah, I would almost put him above Ben Reilly, but even then, that's not really saying that.
I put Ben Reilly at the bottom, so everyone's above him. I don't know what Roddy Cat's talking about. I think he's talking some craziness right now.
No, but my point is he's not very. Like I said, my point is he's not very.
Right, he's not very high up on Roddy Cat's rankings.
Right, it's Peter.
But he's above Ben Reilly for me because Ben Reilly's at the bottom.
Right, it's Peter, Miles, Gwen, Silk. All of them kind of can share it. They have
near the top. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Jessica Drew, all of them, and then somewhere down the line is these two, way down the line.
I'm talking about bottom.
Yeah,
I'm talking about Ben Reilly's at the bottom. Shots fired. Seriously, shots fired.
I would put. Well, hell, even with Aranya and freaking Mayday Parker.
I was about to say they're higher up. For me, they're higher up.
That's my point.
Like you need to read. I was about to say Roddy Cat needs to read Spider-Verse. That's what it comes down to because a lot of those characters get a lot of shine during Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon. Spider-Geddon is actually Miles taking his turn at the front of a Spider-Verse type storyline. So. Right. I'm wondering if they'll probably adapt some of Spider-Geddon into Spider-Verse into this upcoming movie as well. We'll see.
That seems confident. But moving right along in the news.
All right, I think I've got this one.
Mm-hmm.
The Batman is going to hit theaters in just a few months and introduce a barely recognizable Colin Farrell as the next big DC villain.
Mm-hmm.
And
matter of fact, take the next one too.
Okay, Farrell plays Oswald Cobblepot, the iconic Batman villain known as Penguin. And it turns out that Danny DeVito is giving his full stamp of approval to his successor in the role of Oswald Cobblepot. For those who are too young, And for those just not in the know, Danny DeVito did in fact play the live action version of the Penguin, Oswald Cobblepot, in the Batman '89 verse, let's say.
Yes.
So DeVito did give his full stamp of approval to Colin Farrell as one of his favorite actors, and he can't wait for this particular rendition of the Penguin. Next up, Colin Farrell is set to reprise his role as the Penguin in the Batman spin-off series set for HBO Max. So, as reported by Variety, excuse me, I'm waiting for this to pull up to get pulled up now. Colin Farrell has officially signed on to star in and executive produce a series spin-off of The Batman in which he would again play the Penguin. I feel like I'm Bugs Bunny. Variety has learned exclusively from sources. Let's see. Farrell will first portray the villainous character in The Batman, which is due out on March 4th, 2022. The series that they're talking about would reportedly delve into the Penguin's rise to power in the Gotham criminal underworld. Variety first reported the series was in development back in September, although Farrell was not attached at that time. Okay.
So the funny thing about this is they did this already in Gotham, which yes, I know is not canon. And this other series was a known quantity from before now, so it is what it is on that. So I'm just
right.
like,
I mean,
we're doing this
yeah.
again, huh?
Right, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we're doing this again.
Yeah, we're doing it again in the multiverse, in the DC multiverse. Right. That's really what it comes down to.
Right. Which exactly.
The multiverse giveth and the multiverse taketh away.
Yeah, indeed. Moving right along, speaking of DC Universe, Joe Manganiello doesn't think he'll play DCEU's Deathstroke again. So he reveals that he doesn't think he's going to play Deathstroke again, and expresses that he's let go of the role. And I'm sure, I believe this article goes in to say that this probably has something to do with the Snyder Cut and or whether that's canon or not. Because obviously we know there are things they're not going forward with. We don't even know what the hell the DCU is going forward with after that last Justice League movie. And now that I guess Flash is still upcoming, and since they're going to do Flashpoint, we don't know where that's going to end up doing for him either. So, but yeah, sounds like let's see. He was speaking with comingsoon.net. He reflected on his time with as DCEU's Deathstroke, and again, like I said, he was asked and said he pretty much let that go a little while ago, and that's pretty much that. Maybe he'll show up somewhere, maybe not. Like you would think they would put him in that Batman thing if they're going to do that, but as we just said, that's a multiverse thing, and who even knows. Next up,
so thanks to Total Film / Games Radar, we have some new photos from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, all decked out as Black Adam on the set of the DC film. So Dwayne Johnson also opened up about the film and the character that he's playing, and talks about Black Adam being an anti-hero / villain, depending on your perspective, and that talks about the development, because this has been in development for a long time, and Black Adam. He also describes how Black Adam will apparently change the hierarchy of power in the DCEU. Let's see here. Just scrolling through all the jibber jabber that Dwayne Johnson has about this particular character, which actually turns me off. I'm going to be honest. That is my particular take on this version of Black Adam. Dwayne Johnson is also looking forward to a day when they're able to film a battle between Black Adam and Superman. He says he doesn't know who that Superman is going to be and doesn't know who's going to play him, but that's okay. He just wants it to happen at some point.
Sure, dream on, kid. New featurette focuses on the crazy BFS Peacemaker and Vigilante. So yeah, that Peacemaker HBO Max series is still a go apparently, and this featurette which says is still a thing. I don't know. I really don't care that much as if what I'm saying is not indicative of. But basically, video includes Cena, Gunn, and Stroma talk about the series and the relationship between Peacemaker and Vigilante. It also offers up new footage of the two having a ton of fun blowing up stuff in the woods. And this article kind of goes on into what the featurette kind of goes into. And Peacemaker is going to premiere January 13th, 2022 on HBO Max. Next up.
I mean, it looks like that Vigilante costume is going to be relatively faithful to the comics.
Sure, I guess.
So
I don't know that much about Vigilante. So wait, Vigilante the cowboy or a cowboy? Cowboy in one.
He's gone through a lot of changes because of Crisis and multiple characters taking on the role.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first one because the first one was introduced. The character and concept was introduced during the New Teen Titans run from the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, next up, Grant Gustin is the Arrowverse's new Reverse Flash in Armageddon photos. Ooh. Spoilers. The CW released new photos of Barry Allen as Reverse Flash, pitted against Eobard Thawne as the Flash for part 4 of the show's Armageddon event. So for all of you faithful CW DC watchers, I hope you're enjoying this.
And obviously there's a bit of comic accuracy to that because I believe that something like that happened in the comic books where Thawne took basically not necessarily face-off style, but basically did plastic surgery to make himself look like Barry. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know. But regardless, this thing is going.
Whether or not that's what they're adapting is something else. So
yeah,
we'll
exactly.
See.
So yeah, we'll if those are still watching that, I'm nowhere near caught up. So it is what it is. Tyler Hoechlin's Man of Steel returns in Superman and Lois Season 2 trailer. So the CW official trailer for Superman and Lois Season 2 promises action, family drama, and even a Teen Wolf reunion. As the trailer opens, we see that Clark Kent and Lois Lane are having marital problems. Oh no. Things haven't been okay for months, Lois tells Clark. And quote unquote, I've been telling you, Lois's father, Sam Lane, even comes by to check on her, saying always something to worry about isn't there. So I have not been keeping up with this particular program. I have heard reports that it's good. Don't know. Going into this article a little bit further, I guess it sounds like some ties to Steel is in this. Steel has shown up on the show now that I think about it. So another person attached to Steel has something. An alternate version of Lois and Steele's character, his daughter, and then it looks like it's a whole thing. Regardless, if you're keeping up this, you probably know what in the world that's about. But hey, there's a trailer out there. Season 2's happening. That is the crux of this.
Next up, there is a rumor that DC is developing a Crisis on Infinite Earths animated trilogy. The rumor was reported by producer and film critic Matthias Leorta, who said on Twitter, "Scoop! DC is purportedly planning a 3-part animated adaptation of Crisis on Infinite Earths, which would bring together different versions of its heroes. If true, the trilogy might bring together not only characters from the much-loved DC animated universe, which is essentially the characters from the Batman animated series and ending with the conclusion of Justice League Unlimited, but also from the DC animated movie universe, TV shows like Teen Titans or Harley Quinn, shorts like the DC Showcase Collection, or countless more." So, way to try to confuse everybody, DC. But listen, people love that Crisis stuff, so.
Yeah, and luckily, given an episode of the Comic Book Chronicles from last year, we both are familiar with it. Well, I mean, Agent 70 was, I think, was already familiar with it, but I caught up with it. So
yeah, I mean, I was familiar with most of it. And I freely confess I don't remember a lot of what we talked about on that episode. I may have to revisit that episode.
I don't either. It's weird though, because we do know that they did Flashpoint already, because that pretty much was the shift of the DC animated universe at a certain point a few years back,
Right.
and they started
Right.
making movies after that, and now they're going to an event, the first DC event, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
What was the name of the crying guy? Was that Proctor?
No,
the crying guy that we poked fun at.
Oh man, Pariah.
Was it Pariah?
That was Pariah. Yes.
Like literally, his name was Pariah.
That was his name. Yeah.
Good lord.
I was like, I almost forgot about it myself, but yeah, you said
crying. As soon as I said the crying guy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
So yeah, again, this is a rumor, so we don't know if this is gonna happen, but if it does, that'll be interesting to say the least. And like I said, because of the fact that they've already done Flashpoint already in animated form, like it's kind of curious as to why they're going backwards. So, at any rate, we'll see if there's any merit to this. Sabrina's Kiernan Shipka explains how Riverdale role is in Chilling Adventures continuity, and I guess this is spoilers for anyone who cared about Chilling Adventures of Sabrina and not finished it. Apparently she died at the end of that, but she is currently has a role in current season of Riverdale. So there is that. Let's see. It says here, no worries, says Kiernan Shipka, who told TV Line that the teenager wish is not done with living life. Quote unquote, it's very unlikely Sabrina just kind of chill in the sweet hereafter. I think she would get bored and would want to find her way back to her friends and family, and vice versa, according to Shipka. Her aunties and her friends and Ambrose would do anything for her, so to me, it makes sense that her death wasn't a forever death. And I guess somewhere in there is probably, we don't necessarily know when, in relation to that Netflix show, this particular Riverdale season is taking place, because they were pretty much two separate things up until this crossover. So who knows? Don't know. Haven't watched Riverdale or Sabrina. So next up, the production company behind the Mega Man movie has finally posted an update on the video game adaptation's production, revealing that the Blue Bomber is headed to Netflix. The movie was briefly mentioned in an update to the official website of Supermarché, the production company that is run by the Mega Man movies writers and directors. Okay. Mega. For those who remember the Saturday morning cartoon.
Oh no, I don't. I honestly don't recall ever having played Mega Man, to be honest.
Well, Mega Man was basically a part of Captain N cartoon on Saturday mornings, and that might have been a little bit before your time. Or after, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, but it was kind of like mid to early '80s, so I don't know. But I remember it because I'm silly like that. So, but anyway, regardless, there may be a live action Mega Man. Oh gracious! The Boys announced his diabolical animated spin-off series, apparently. So Prime Video announced a new animated spin-off series of The Boys titled Diabolical. As reported by Variety, the announcement was made in a special video by Billy Butcher's Call Urban. Along with the title revealed, it was announced that Diabolical will consist of 8 episodes and will serve as an animated anthology series set in the same universe as Prime Video's The Boys. Think Animatrix, basically. And I believe I've seen other articles to that assertion. So, yeah, I mean, there's really nothing else to say. This article kind of goes on about that and even mentions what I just said. So, there you go. So if you're a fan of The Boys, there's something more to look forward to. Next up.
All right, next up, Jujutsu Kaisen director teases new content for a prequel movie. In a newly translated interview, anime director Sung-Hoo Park, it's always interesting to see Korean names on these Japanese anime, but that's just the nature of the anime business nowadays. There's lots of cross-pollination between the two countries when it comes to anime and animation.
Especially with a lot of work on said anime, you're right. Yeah.
What's that?
I said especially with a lot of work because a lot of Korean companies do some of the work on a lot of
Actual
these.
animation, exactly. I've seen it in the credits, so I
Mhm.
noticed that during my renewed dive into animation that I've seen a lot of Korean companies and names in the credits.
Mhm.
So this director teased new material for the Jujutsu Kaisen Zero prequel movie. The director says that it will feature new content, and he teased that even fans who have read Gege Akutami's original manga will discover new things in the series' upcoming prequel movie. Okay.
Yeah. You've seen Jujutsu Kaisen, correct?
I've done. Yeah,
That's
I
what I
finished
thought.
it. I mean, I'm up to date. Let's put it that way.
You're right. Because we don't know when or whether they're doing a second season or not. But doesn't matter because this is a prequel. So, next up though. Oh wait, oops. Bing. There we go. Neo still knows kung fu in the latest trailer for The Matrix Revolutions. Actually, I still haven't watched this trailer. But the latest trailer for The Matrix Resurrections, excuse me, um, correcting myself, is here and it's more mysterious than ever. It's hinting at a repeating loop of ideas. Whoa. Deja vu. Was it the same cat or is it a different cat? Anyway, scenes and moments from the original trilogy of films. But one thing is made clear: amid all the confusion, Neo definitely still knows kung fu, according to this article. The new trailer's action bounces between the digital world of the Matrix and the post-apocalyptic world outside of it, intermixing with clips from the first three Matrix movies. And while it's not very clear what's actually going on, it seems that the main focus of the film will be Neo working to reunite with Trinity, no duh, something that will presumably be difficult, given that both characters appeared to die at the end of 2003's Revolutions. So, yeah. If you watched it and liked it, good on you. I haven't watched it yet, but, did you check this out? Or you're like,
What's up?
This trailer?
I watched it.
Did you? Yeah, I had intended to, but I totally forgot up until this, and I was like, yeah, I'll watch it later. Like I said, it's kind of one of those things, like, how we kind of get into is like, I don't know how much of this I actually want to see because a lot of these trailers end up spoiling stuff.
Sure.
And this movie's not, not far off. So.
Right. No, I absolutely agree with that idea. I think I watched it and then I kind of said, well, if they put out any more, I'm not watching anymore.
Right. And
I'm definitely okay with where we are.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of knowledge going in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speaking of that, the next
story is The Matrix Awakens teaser includes an eerily realistic animated Keanu Reeves. So there is a brief 15-second clip featuring the iconic green text of the Matrix films before zooming out onto Keanu Reeves' face, where he asks, "How do we know what is real?" The teaser concludes by confirming that The Matrix Awakens is an Unreal Engine 5 experience before announcing that a full reveal will take place during the Game Awards 2021, which air Friday the 10th.
Which is actually, probably ended by now, but as of this recording, it was on tonight. As of this recording.
Okay, yeah. So this is a video game thing.
Yes, it is, and I don't know why I put it here, but so if by the time this comes out in audio form, I'm sure folks who are interested will have seen the Game Awards and the world premiere probably of the Matrix Awakens video game. Let's hope it's better than some of the other Matrix video games. Let's just say. And I believe, well, it's not last but not least, but almost. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 Tails' voice actor Colin O'Shaughnessy confirmed for the sequel. So we knew Tails was coming. We didn't know who was going to play Tails, and now we know. I still haven't seen the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, so go figure. But now we know the current voice of Tails is playing Tails in the movie. Cool. Next up.
All right. So actually today, as of the day of the recording,
yes,
WWE superstar Rey Mysterio, it was announced that he's going to star in the new Cartoon Network Latin America series Rey Mysterio versus the Darkness. and it will be produced by Mexican studio Viva Calavera in conjunction with Mysterio. The series will have 10 episodes and will premiere in Latin America in 2022. And if you see on the webpage that Roddycat is sharing, there's an image that embraces the visual style of wrestling, lucha libre, anime, and American animation. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think we might have got a tease for this like a while back, but I guess this maybe I can't remember because I do remember there was something along this lines going on. So, and I think this might be it. So, I don't know whether we're going to. I assume we're going to get it here in the States.
Eventually, it's probably like a debut in Latin America first, and then it'll probably make its way stateside to Cartoon Network.
Mm-hmm. I would assume that would logically, given the thing. So
keep it in the family.
Exactly. So wrestling fans, stay tuned for that. Or I'm sure fire up your VPNs when it comes out.
All right, we're going to transition over to the comic book news.
Exactly. Marvel's new Iron Man may be the multiverse's darkest Avenger. So don't ask me why I held this off from last week, but this is basically spoilers from last week's Avengers 50. We kind of talked a little bit about it, but Howard Stark, for some strange reason, is back from the dead thanks to Mephisto. and is running around as an Iron Man doing his bidding. To what end, we don't know, but I guess we'll find out in going forward. Next up.
All right, so here's some upcoming news with regards to some news regarding the upcoming X-Men books. So the X-Men are going to meet their new destiny this spring, and it could be more than one destiny. So the new release of books is going to be titled Destiny of X, and that's the next chapter of the X-Men franchise following the current reign of X era. So they're hinting at the involvement of multiple eras, time periods for the characters, and by extension, the entire mutant corner of the Marvel universe. So Roddycat is going to be scrolling through this. You have Destiny of X teasers for Magneto and Destiny and Mr. Sinister. So bottom line is these are teasers that are going to be confirmed in solicitations for comic books upcoming very soon.
Yep. And on that note, secrets from mutant history are unleashed and vicious betrayals threaten Krakoa's future in Immortal X-Men, which is a new series. So earlier this week, Marvel Comics announced that the next era of X-Men storytelling, Destiny of X, this is the second age of Krakoa. We'll see the new titles emerge and existing ones undergo exciting status quo changes as endless possibilities that await mutant kind are explored. And today fans can learn more about one of March 2022's launches, Kieran Gilliland and Lucas Wernick's Immortal X-Men, which I know there's been some buzz on about from the internet because of some new suits from the X-Men, including like Storm and other folks that have been shown. It says here, Immortal X-Men will focus on the current leaders of mutant kind known as the Quiet Council in an X-Men series rife with backstabbing, shading alliances, and chilling revelations that will put everything you thought you knew about the Krakoa's future in question. And if you're watching the video, you can see this, the cover of Immortal X-Men #1, which has a Last Supper type vibe to it, with mysterious but yet intentional omissions, or at least one in particular omission looks like. So yeah. Let's see. Like I said, yeah, this is coming off after Inferno and X Lives of Wolverine, X Deaths of Wolverine, Trial of Magneto, and some other stuff. So, and like I said, that's coming March 2022.
Next up, Death of Doctor Strange opens the door to a new Marvel Magic legacy hero, Lyra Bloodstone. The Bloodstone family has a surprise new member who debuts just as the search for a new Sorcerer Supreme begins. Let's see here. Lyra Bloodstone, a previously unknown daughter of the evil adventurer Ulysses Bloodstone, will debut in January 12th's Death of Doctor Strange Bloodstone #1. And now we have a first look at what she'll look like in a new design variant cover shown on this webpage. Lyra Bloodstone will debut alongside her already established siblings Elsa and Cullen Bloodstone, a pair of monster hunters who share a bond as blood relatives but don't share much else, to the point where they don't even get along normally. Okay.
Which I thought Cullen was dead at this point, because I've heard, but I don't know. So yeah, I'm going to assume this is like the little sister of Elsa Bloodstone. And I was kind of wondering what in the world the Bloodstones had to do. I mean, obviously they hunt monsters, but I'm like, what did they have to do with Doctor Strange, the death of Doctor Strange? Because monsters, and there's a fine line, but still a line.
Right, but the Bloodstone itself is a magical artifact.
Exactly.
So that's where the intersection comes.
Right. So yeah, I guess we'll see what comes of that, because I think that book's coming out soon. And it's written by Tini Howard, and Iguara is doing the art, I guess. So cool. Next up, move over Spider-Man. The Spider-Bots are getting their own Marvel comic series. Go figure. Spider-Man's diminutive worker bee robots, the Spider-Bots, are scurrying into their own Marvel Comics limited series. Spider-Bots is a new 12-part weekly comic series that debuts Friday, digital first, on the Marvel Unlimited platform in the company's Infinity comic format. MODOK showrunner writer Jordan Blum is writing Spider-Bot and is joined by the art team of artist Alberto Albuquerque and color artist Dono Sanchez Almara, who both recently wrapped up the Web of Spider-Man series, which features the Spider-Bots. And I know this because I read that series, weirdly enough, which I believe that series was based off of an amusement park ride, a theme park ride. Quote unquote, it's been an absolute blast to work with Alberto and explore the Marvel Universe through the digital eyes of the Spider-Bots. Blum says in a Spider-Bot announcement, being a lifelong Spider-Man fan and father of two, I loved the chance to create an all-ages stories for both longtime Marvel zombies and new readers alike who are ready to whip their first web. So I think by the time you see this article, that will be out on Marvel Unlimited. I don't know if it's going to be like free for everybody, or you have to be in a Marvel Unlimited to be able to read these. But if you're interested, it's going to be there nonetheless. Next up, Cindy Moon, aka Marvel Silk, is back with a new limited series beginning in January 2022 that finds her facing off against a brand new supervillain from another world, the perils of social media, and a crisis that is an existential crisis. So, writer Emily Kim and artist Takeshi Miyazawa's new series finds Cindy in a new place, taking a step back to question her place in the world. But she can't be in her head all the time. There's that brand new villain we mentioned with ties to what Marvel calls ancient Korean magic and social media. So this is actually going to come out on January 19th, 2022. And the rest of this article is an interview with Emily Kim about this book. And take a look at it. It should prove to be pretty interesting. I'm looking forward to this. Any new Silk content is welcome. Yeah, exactly. I was about to say, yeah, we are fans of Cindy Moon Silk around these parts. So, like, yeah, anytime we get something new is great. So I am also looking forward to this. Marvel makes a major change to Ghost Rider's decades-long status quo. So big changes are coming to Ghost Rider for his upcoming 50th anniversary, and one of the most notable is the fact that Johnny Blaze, the original Brimstone Avenger, will no longer be in control of his hellish transformations. Quote unquote, there is a lot I can't tell you. Actually, excuse me, and that's central to the trouble Ghost Rider faces. Writer Benjamin Percy says, the first issue is an oversized 40 pages, and you'll know instantly that you're reading not just a horror book, but a mystery. Horror and mystery rely on you not knowing what's coming, so stay tuned and assume that nothing is as it seems. But here's a small tease: Johnny Blaze no longer has control over the spirit of vengeance, and when possessed, he has no memory of what transpired. Which doesn't that kind of go back to his origins?
I don't recall.
Yeah,
That's an excellent question. I was like, it sounds very Hulk-like, which is interesting.
Yeah.
It definitely sounds very much like, they're going to make him very similar to like what used to be a version of the Hulk.
Right. And according to Percy, this will all be contextualized, but Ghost Rider is far more of a curse and terrifying presence because of it.
Right.
Next up.
That's an interesting change. Something to differentiate Johnny Blaze from the other Ghost Riders, because now we have, at the very least, 3 main Ghost Riders in the Marvel 616, and with previous ones having existed in the previous, million, from whatchamacallit, Avengers million BC going forward.
Right. But didn't they kind of change one of them to where he's not necessarily a Ghost Rider anymore? They kind of like broke him off to it. Like, yeah, technically kind of is, but he kind of still isn't. The way they try to rebrand him, I guess.
They've done a bunch of things with the Johnny Blaze character.
Well, not Johnny Blaze, the other one. I can't remember the dude's name. Because they basically made him another character.
Bobby?
But... No, not
Danny Ketch. Danny Ketch.
Yeah.
Right. They definitely made him another character recently.
Yeah,
Danny Ketch. No, you're correct.
Mm-hmm. But you're so correct, because he's still kind of considered, but it's kind of weird how they did that.
Mm-hmm.
Tashin, I guess that's pronounced.
No, I was about to say, I got this one.
I'm sorry.
You just the Ghost Rider one.
Go for it.
All right. The Marvel Comics Library is an exclusive long-term collaboration between Tashin and Marvel. Over the next decade, Marvel's rarest classic comics, including Spider-Man, Avengers, and Captain America, will be reproduced in their original glory in extra-large format. The library offers collectors a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to lay their hands on the world's most desirable comics. So, Tashin's extra-large format, close in size to the original artworks, reveal startling new details in the work of Marvel's most acclaimed artist. Oh, so this is like a IDW artist edition.
Kinda, I guess.
But in color.
Right.
Because it's close in size to the original artwork, so it's going to be like 11 by 17 or close to it.
Right. But also, if you're watching the video, you can see the GIF that they're using in this article to kind of flip through the book. And it's definitely starting off with amazing Fantasy 15, Spidey's intro, but it also looks like some text, and looks like they're even putting the original advertisements in there. Yeah. And
right, so what we're actually getting is like kind of a fancier, bigger masterpiece.
Exactly. And looks like we will be doing these for not only Spidey, but the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and Captain America, and they're all scheduled to be released in 2022, 2023. Twitch, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, did they have a price?
Listen, there are people out there who collect just to fill in their bookshelves, and this is targeted right at them.
Mm-hmm. I honestly might be interested in the Avengers one. Oh, it also says that the first 5,000 copies of Spider-Man Volume 1 will be numbered and released as a famous first edition. The book will be available as a collector's edition, limited to 1,000 copies, featuring an aluminum print cover tipped into a leather-bound spine. Basically going to do it up for the first run. And it's going to be probably pricey, because I could have sworn I saw a price on this, maybe not here, where it might be like $120 or something. For the volume, but I'm not sure. Like, I know I saw it on Twitter somewhere before I saw this article. Regardless, hey, if you're interested, there you go for it. Star Wars: The Book of Boba Fett Black Series pre-orders with Boba Fett and Fennec Shand and more. So there's going to be a Black Series Boba Fett from the Book of Boba Fett, Fennec Shand for the same series, which that series is not out yet, but also some other folks. Stormtrooper from Jeddah, Mix Mayfield, Boba Fett's Tython, Bib Fortuna, Princess Leia from the Yavin ceremony, Dr. Evazin from, I guess, I'm going to assume from the Mandalorian. I don't know, Ponda Baba, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and all of those pre-orders are up for all of those. And I guess I can quickly go through this other article, which I won't, which has some, which at the very least shows some close-ups of Fennec Shan's figure. So I scroll through that very quickly.
That's like a decent likeness of Ming-Na Wen on that figure.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
It's not great, but it's decent.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that that they made the Book of Boba Fett figure a little heavier around the midsection. So, that's it's obviously much more true to the show.
Yeah, and definitely a pretty decent likeness of Tamara Morrison.
You mean Aquaman's dad? I'm kidding.
Yes. So as I'm scrolling through the Boba Fett figure there you go. Next up, though. We kind of already talked about this, actually. Yeah, it is a Robin. It's basically an amalgam of one that you've already seen before, but this is kind of a new one, weirdly enough. I don't know. Or you may have seen before, a more recent Robin, I should say. So we don't necessarily need to go into that. Nightwing writer Tom Taylor teases a Teen Titans reunion fans have been waiting for. So Tom Taylor, well, basically, while responding to a fan request on Twitter to bring Wally West, aka The Flash, back into Dick Grayson's life, Taylor, quote, tweeted the call to action, writing, we'll see what we can do. Hashtag Nightwing. The writer accompanied the tweet with a GIF image of the pairing from Young Justice, specifically the season 1 episode Welcome to Happy Harbor. Fans begged Taylor in the comments for the reunion of the two Titans, and he has already written both characters into his work before. Now, I don't know why I should say this, but I feel compelled to say that, hey, they can't really take fan suggestions because that's kind of gets into a legal thing, which almost pretty much says that he probably already had something in the works before this came about.
Right. No, yeah, because it's one of those, chicken and the egg things.
Mm-hmm.
Chicken or the egg.
Exactly. So. Which reminds me, I need to catch up on Young Justice. This season seems to be kind of going all over the place, but then again, so did the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I was about to say I've been watching it. I mean, I've been catching up on it, and it's definitely all over the place.
Yeah, which like the last season was also like that too.
Yeah, so. I mean, I'm not like the biggest Young Justice supporter. It's not like I was one of the people who was signing the petition to bring it back. But I'm watching this, and I'm kind of like, oh. Okay.
Yeah, but it kind of, they kind of end up paying off in the end. So hopefully this will be the case. So we'll see, I guess.
We'll see. All right. Next up, Robin gets Batman and Alfred the perfect Christmas gift in DC's "'Tis the Season to Be Freezin" preview. Good Lord, 'tis the season to be freezing. So this is a Batman the Animated Series style story.
Yes.
But this book on sale next week is this year's DC Comics holiday special, and will feature everything from a Firestorm Killer Frost face-off to a Batman the Animated Series-esque tale, and even an appearance by the recently introduced JLQ Justice League Queer. Let's see. Yeah, there's a bunch of these stories with the list of the creators here on this page. And the window shopping story features Mr. Freeze, Robin, Tim Drake, Batman, Bruce Wayne, and even Alfred Pennyworth. And that is also listed here on this page. Okay.
Indeed. Yes. And before anybody else says it, jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg, the Batmobile has lost his wheel, the Joker got away. Get that out of the way right now. The Penguin and Catwoman solve COVID, bang, in Danny DeVito's Batman comic, according to Polygon.
I was about to say, hyperbole much?
So let's see. So basically, we've known about Danny DeVito and his story in Gotham City Villains Anniversary Giant, which I believe is out right now. I believe it's out, actually.
Got me?
Yeah, I think it is. But I've not had a chance to read it. So yeah, Danny DeVito wrote a Penguin story, and he which says was basically he and the Catwoman team up, have lots of sex, and solve COVID-19 pandemic, according to this article. And the article kind of goes on from there. That's all I want to say about it. Next,
Batman, Robin, Talia al Ghul, and Deathstroke are about to go to war with each other. Batman writer Joshua Williamson is spearheading DC's Shadow War, which sees these aforementioned characters engaged in an epic encounter. The 3-month crossover kicks off in March with Shadow War Alpha #1, written by Williamson and illustrated by Victor Bogdanovich. According to DC, Slade Wilson commits an unthinkable act, and Talia al Ghul, the daughter of the demon, is out for blood. The League of Shadows is out to murder Deathstroke and destroy Deathstroke Inc., and it's up to Batman and Robin to track Slade down and bring him to justice. But do they? All right. So, yeah, there's some, I guess, cover images that are here. I guess apparently in March, I guess this doesn't interfere with Bruce Wayne's trips around the, like out of Gotham, I guess.
Apparently
and
not.
we see here also the kind of Batman Incorporated costume that he's seen wearing at the end of Batman 118 this week. So that is apparently going to be the costume that he's going to be wearing for the foreseeable future.
Wait, I'm sorry, who?
Batman.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, and also apparently, because based on these images, Robin's getting a new suit, Damian Wayne's getting a new suit, and I guess he's taking up Robin again, because as we last saw, which outside of the fact that he's hit the book he's starring in right now is called Robin, he had pretty much given up the mantle of Robin, and it looks like some elements of that Robin book is coming into this also, or aka some characters, but also makes sense because Joshua Williamson, who's writing both this Batman book and Robin, there. It's all connected, folks.
Right. Somehow, some way.
Exactly. And I guess Damian and Bruce must have reconciled somewhere along the way, because they were still, as far as I remember, were still on the outs.
Williamson is also writing this Deathstroke book as well, so it's all his corner of the universe.
Oh yeah, I guess he is writing Deathstroke. Yeah, I've been reading that, but I totally blanked on that. So, yeah, there you go. Some sad news, folks. Hall of Fame writer, artist.
Writer also.
Well, yeah, he has written. I forgot. That's true. But, George Perez, the legendary, most would say, as if you're especially of a certain vintage, took to Facebook to announce that he has been diagnosed with stage 3 pancreatic cancer. His doctors estimate that he has 6 months to a year left, and rather than undergoing time-consuming treatment, Perez has decided to spend time with his friends and family. The creator also stated that he wanted to do one more signing event for his fans again. Like, if you don't know who George Perez is he's given so
you need to look it up. You need to
Yeah.
look it up. That's what it comes down to. You need to look it up.
Right.
He's always been one of my favorites. He's one of the most influential artists on my collecting habits, on my comic book reading, on my art. And it's funny, I definitely have a blind spot when it comes to some of his work, because remember, he helped reboot Wonder Woman post-Crisis.
True.
And that's why I wanted to emphasize that he has written in the past. He actually wrote Wonder Woman for like roughly 60 plus issues.
Right.
Back then, he actually was working on that into the early 90s post-Crisis.
Right.
Which is wild to me, because obviously I wasn't into Wonder Woman at the time. I was just discovering my love for the X-Men during the mid 80s going into the early 90s. So I definitely was not paying much attention to Perez's work on Wonder Woman, but it's a big deal for a lot of fans of the Wonder Woman character.
Right.
That particular run, because it established a lot of things like multicultural Amazons. That's actually one of the one of the big things that came out of that run, as well as tying Diana more closely to the Greek pantheon. That was one of the aspects of the of his run on the book that became pretty important. But for me, my personal connection to George Perez takes me all the way back to, it doesn't take me to Avengers, it doesn't take me to Fantastic Four, because that's where he started out. He did some Deathlock stuff, some Inhuman stuff, some really early Marvel stuff that predates me as a person and as a comic book reader. But when I came up, like finally understanding what comics were and asking for them and begging for them and having cousins give me copies of stuff, what I found was the New Teen Titans by George Perez and Marv Wolfman. And this is a spoiler for what I'm going to post probably before I go to bed on Instagram. I'm going to turn off my virtual background for a second. And put this up. So my background is off, right?
Yes. Matter of fact, let me do something real quick and give you a close-up. There we go.
This is my copy of the New Teen Titans #1. I actually don't have the New Teen Titans first appearance, which is a Brave and the Bold issue. And unfortunately, that's probably going to go up in value sooner rather than later. But this issue I have signed by George Perez, Marv Wolfman, and the inker Romeo Tangal, who happens to be of Filipino descent. So shout out to the Asian representation, even way back when, in like 1980 or 1981, when this book was first published. But I came across the New Teen Titans later than this. I hunted this down when I was in college, and I filled in my run of the Wolfman Perez New Teen Titans. But I came to this a little bit later, but I loved his work. His work was so detailed, and I learned about comic book art and artists, and following specific artists based on his name. I wanted to find out what else he had done. So that's how influential he was on me and my artistic eye. So eventually I learned that he had earlier books, he had done earlier stuff, and I never really gone back to it, but I definitely filled in my New Teen Titans run. And then when he came back and did Hulk Future Imperfect, which Roddy Cat still hasn't read, which I am imploring him to read, because it is good.
Which before finding this out, a couple of days prior to finding this out, I actually have on deck to read.
So it's queued up in Roddy Cat's Marvel Unlimited,
or no, in my tab, actually in my browser tab.
Well, there it is. So ultimately, that was kind of one of his comebacks, as well as Infinity Gauntlet to the Marvel corner of comic books. And he did a great run on Avengers when they came back from Heroes Reborn. And obviously the crowning achievements, I think, of his career were probably one, Crisis on Infinite Earths for DC, when he and Marv Wolfman basically rebooted the DC universe, for better or for worse, because they kind of lost me as a fan, because I didn't want to necessarily learn all the new stuff at that age. I was like in junior high school or late elementary school when that stuff happened. So I wasn't a big fan of the idea of Crisis, but I know a lot of people love that era.
Oh, all right.
We're back, everybody.
Yes, sorry about that, folks. My PC decided to said it don't want to work no more.
Right. It was too sad because of the George Perez news, and it just couldn't bear hearing me, Agent 70, just go on and wax poetic about George Perez. But in short, let's use this time. If you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, you've seen this post. Let's use this time to give George Perez his flowers, his due, his accolades, and appreciate and show our appreciation and love for an artist who was, impacted so many with his art and his writing. So, that wraps up that particular discussion. But we're going to be seeing tributes to George Perez in the near future. I'll be posting up stuff. Like I said, this is a preview that I showed earlier. My copy of New Teen Titans #1. I'll be posting that probably tonight before I hit the sack. So just be prepared for that, because he deserves all the flowers we can give him.
Indeed. So that being said, that's that.
Yeah.
And we'll go ahead and
I've got the next story, actually.
Yep, the last 2 stories. Go for it.
Right. Library of American Comics and Euro Comics are moving from IDW to Clover Press. The first project will be Terry and the Pirates, the Master Collection. The Library of American Comics, LOAC, and its European comics counterpart, Euro Comics, which were formerly published by IDW up until now, will be moving to Clover Press, starting with the new Terry and the Pirates collection, according to Dean Mullaney, the co-founder and creative director for both lines. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Last but not least, the Firefly Holiday Special #1 celebrates the season in space. So this is an exclusive preview, according to this article from CBR, of the Firefly Holiday Special #1. If you know anything about Firefly and the crew of the Serenity, they've have had some legs in the comic books as of recently, and it looks like they're getting a holiday special, and this article is pretty much a preview of said a holiday special courtesy of Boom Studios. And I won't necessarily go into that, but what of the synopsis or whatnot, but you can check it out in the show notes. And with that, folks, we are going to come into the end of this here podcast. But first, one last ad read.
Our last ad read of the night is for Wink, the personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to Cabernet to Torrontés, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Have you ever tried an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your taste and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off, and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink Wines through CSPN. Do it today.
I may or may not could use a glass of wine after trying to edit this here particular episode. But we're not going to worry about that right now, because as we end this here podcast, I'd like to thank each and every one of you folks from coming out here. Just going to say right here at the top, or reiterate here at the end of this, is that we are going on movie protocol again next week. So no recording on next Thursday, because Agent 7 will be at Spider-Man No Way Home. I may at some point also watch it that weekend. We will see. I don't know. But regardless, like I said, there will not be a recording on next Thursday. And you can stay tuned to our social media to get when we do record.
Right. So thankfully, the Thursday following will be the eve of Christmas Eve. So we will be having a show that Thursday. It is, it's just abutting right up against the holiday.
Indeed. Yeah. So, yeah, look out for that. And given that it's the end of the year, it should be relatively light. But then again, we've said that before. So we'll, outside of us doing 2 weeks worth of whatever books ends up coming out. And the last couple of episodes of Hawkeye.
Hawkeye, right?
Yeah. Yep. And of course, we may have some impressions on
No Way Home.
Yeah, No Way Home. Between one or two of those episodes. Well, between one of those episodes, anyway. So if not it's not the first one, it's probably the next one.
Right.
And with that, folks, I have been Radicat. You can find me at Radicat on Twitter. You can find me at News Notes Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. Dirt at PCN_Dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Network on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and all the umbrella sites they're in. And the Osiris said this ish. Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Cron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. The Click Nation on Twitter, that's the KLIQNATION, all one word, and theclicknation.com. But mostly you can find Tim at comicbook.com, where he's over there writing his face off. You can find this here podcast on the Coastal of the Podcast Network, that's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us on your podcast approval place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal of the Podcast Network SoundCloud page. We are not SoundCloud rappers, I assure you. You can also find us most times recording every Thursday night, 9:30-ish p.m. on the YouTube channel of The Click Nation. That's youtube.com/TheClickNation. And also twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles, all one word.
Make sure to hit like and subscribe and hit the notification button to keep yourself tuned into all of our recordings. That goes for audio and video.
And hey, maybe help us get maybe like 25 or 25 more followers on Twitch, so that we can maybe, such as times like this, put up whole versions of this here podcast. And I know we've been saying we were going to stream a little bit more on Twitch, other stuff of like nature, and we will, because I have some stuff on the agenda, but just haven't really gotten around to it. So stay around, stay tuned for that kind of stuff.
And pay attention to my social media, because we didn't have a chance to, because of technical difficulties, have a chance to do Toy Corner this week. But I've got some new figures that I got as a result of taking advantage of Cyber Monday, specifically GameStop. So
I mean, you want to go ahead and do that right now? I feel like
No, it's fine. It's fine, because we've got enough to deal with our technical difficulties.
Yes, my apologies for that. My like I said, my computer decided it didn't want to do anything anymore. So
it was too sad. We know.
It actually blue screen. So yes, it probably was sad hearing about George Perez. But that being said, folks, like I said, we will be back. Stay tuned to our social networks to when we will record next week. This has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One. Wakanda forever!